All right. John Razimus here with a impromptu live show. We're going to be talking with a guest, Freethinker Silver. You might have heard of him on YouTube. He has a pretty successful channel. Check it out. A lot of cool videos. He's a supporter of this channel, and I support his channel. I'm sure he doesn't support everything I say, and I probably don't support everything he says, but YouTubers have to get together and collaborate if you want to survive in this tough YouTube climate. And I just have to send out the link to Twitter so people can check out this video, see what it's about. It's a 1 p.m. my time, Sunday afternoon show. It's a live show. And let me just tweet this out so people can see this. All right. The YouTube page, there it is. Man, I wish it was easier to tweet this out. This is going to be a fun show, a quick show on the spot. No pressure, no big deal. And I realize I'm logged into an account that doesn't have the email. So I'm going to have to find the code, and we will see what happens. All right, let me get this code. Let me get to the email. John Razimus here. I'm a paranormal researcher, ghost investigator, occult researcher. I have a lot of occult books that I found out. One of them, moths had eaten on the bottom of it. And luckily, I checked all of my other books, and no moths touched any of my other books. So that book that the moths ate, I believe, is probably the newest. So, or it's not necessarily moth, it's bookworms, which could be any different type of thing. I'm not going to go into detail, but let me compose this email. I have to get the email off my phone because I'm not good at planning. I apologize. All right. See what the email is. This is live. I apologize. I got to type in an email real quick. Okay, here we go. John Razimus. Cool discussion coming soon. I have to invite this individual on. I have to give them a link. Okay. I believe I spelled email correctly. All right. Now I have to pop on over to Google Hangouts and get this share link, copy that, go into the email and paste it. And hopefully he will get that. So in this episode, I'm just going to be talking about random things. We left off on talking about Preston B. Nichols and talking about the Dybbuk box incident with Ghost Adventures Live. Just real quick, talking about the Dybbuk box. Zach Bagans tweeted a new video. You can check that out between him and the rabbi, where he clears up that there wasn't a script, that the word script was used, but it just meant this is probably what you don't want to happen, and he used this word script. So Zach Bagans uploaded a new thing just to clear up the confusion that Ghost Adventures does not use a script. I'm sure they had a storyboard type situation where they're going to go to this room, and this room, but there's no script. It definitely is genuinely, especially their live show, off script, no script involved. And then he volunteered, I'll come on next time you open up the Dybbuk box. And Zach Bagans like, yeah, okay. But to be honest, you know what? I would get someone that actually has a diehard belief in any attachment. And if you listen to the EVPs that Gary Galka posted, check out Gary Galka's YouTube, check out Gary Galka's Twitter. The guy who invented the Mel meter and the REM pod and various EVP recorders, he posted the 15 minutes in segments of what he recorded in the Dybbuk box room. And you could hear the word imps. You could hear mischievous creatures say, "Open it, don't open it." And a lot of people are going to say that's fake, but it's not. I walked around once with a recorder. I believe it was this one. And I hooked it up with a cheap lapel mic from Amazon. And my very first time ever trying it, I got a number of voices, some audible, some not audible, but clearly all of them, well, not all of them. I'm sure you're going to get miscellaneous sounds bumping off the walls, but I happen to be in nature walking around. So there is a possibility someone yelling something in the air, drifting it, can somehow get in here, but not the whispers. When there's a whisper straight into the mic, it's not something easily fakeable unless you get out equipment. But what I'm saying is a true ghost investigator can play it back on the spot. And what I do is I record for a good hour, then I listen to it a month later. Is it real? I mean, what I was saying in the last video was the Dybbuk box. There's a video of the previous owners opening it up, taking all the items out, saying, "This is what it is. See, here's all the items." And then they put them all back in and they closed it. And it looked like a QVC commercial, like they're selling it. And they obviously had zero fear. They just opened it up, looked at it, turned it around, you could see it, and closed it. So Zach, you know, most definitely, if he's going to have a haunted house, haunted mansion, haunted museum, he's going to want to hype that a little bit. You're paying to see it. You're not paying to see this QVC display, which holds little cool stuff and the little shelves inside. You're going to see the most haunted object in the world. And that's just what it is. So I sent out the link to Freethinker Silver. Let's hope you can find it and click on it. I hope my internet connection isn't too cruddy. But let's just talk about real quick, unless anyone has any questions. Hi from Scotland. Okay, you got a question. Why are the corners of rooms portals? What is the reason? Corners of rooms. See, I built this set because of my corners of rooms theory, and a lot of people believe that's where the energy collects. A lot of people believe that's where the energy gathers, and they are energy beings. So I guess that is possible. But from my perspective, the corner is where they stand. They're standing with their two ghost feet and ghost legs. See, I differ from other paranormal investigators in that I think spirits have a humanoid form. I think they walk around and they walk through people and they walk through me. And doing Google searches for 1,000 years, I haven't found anyone say ghosts walk through me. Nowhere on the entire internet. Occasionally here, I felt an energy in my chest, or I felt something on my spine. I felt something fly through my stomach. Perhaps would be the closest thing I could find to how I describe it when a ghost walks through me. I could almost feel the motions of the thing walking with a stride. And why they choose corners of rooms? I think because humans don't hang out in corners of rooms. So they know it's a safe spot. They know it's a safe place to hang out for a ghost. And you think ghosts wouldn't care about a safe spot. But if you go on enough ghost adventures on the show, Ghost Adventures, you can see they're walking through a basement, and occasionally a rock gets thrown. And you might say it's fake, but I personally don't think it is fake. If you invade the space of these ghosts that have been hanging out in an abandoned basement for 100 years, and you just walk there like you're the boss, they're going to react if they know that you know they're there. Perhaps they won't react and hide in the corner and hope that they're not noticed. But when you have enough ghost detecting equipment like this, and they are noticed, they start to throw rocks. They start to do something. I went to an 1830s house. I walked around it 2 times saying, "Hey, ghost, is there any ghosts here?" I didn't know. And as I'm trying to turn on my second camera, the ghost freaking walked in the grass toward me. And I recorded the whole thing. It's going to be in my documentary that's going to be 100% free, except for the ads, perhaps. I'm seeing more YouTubers selling by this video. I'm never going to do that. Just a couple ads here and there. But we left off talking about Preston B. Nichols a little bit. I was looking for this book. I couldn't find it. So here is another one of his books. You know, I recommend this one. It's called Encounter in the Pleiades, an inside look at UFOs. And it has a really cool cover with a lot of greenery, you know, a pinkish, purplish koala there hanging out on some alien planet, insinuating that koalas are extraterrestrial animals, and a couple flying saucers. And Preston B. Nichols, if you want to know the details about the Montauk Project from Preston B. Nichols' perspective, read the first 3 books, but read his 2 side books, The Music of Time and Encounter in the Pleiades, because he always jumps back to the Montauk Project. And he will always jump back and have like a flashback. And one of the cooler parts about this is there's a scene where I'm pretty sure he walks in it. He walks in a flying saucer that's particularly small. And on the inside, it's super huge. Now, that reminds me of the Doctor Who time machine, the TARDIS. It looks small on the outside. You walk inside, and it's super huge. Preston says, and it perhaps was inspired by the TARDIS, but Preston says that these aliens have mastered the art of building in the extra spatial dimensions. And seems kind of iffy. You know, I wouldn't want to walk into a spaceship that wasn't necessarily in this dimension. Just went on. I don't know. It was interesting. He said he walked into it. Can't remember what was inside. Perhaps there was a forest inside, something strange like that. But it was pretty cool. So let's hope that the Wi-Fi works. I need to turn off my phone to make the Wi-Fi work a little bit better. I sent the email. Let me respond and ask him. Did you get the email from my other account? Because when I'm logged into the Hoax Hunter channel, youtube.com/hoaxhunter, I can't log on to my personal email. I'm locked in. If I logged out, it would crash. Okay. So let's just go along the topic of the subject of the hour. Magic, ghosts, time travel. All right. Time travel. So time travel. I personally am a huge fan of Back to the Future, to the point where I bought the 1947 book that the movie was based on loosely. There's a book called Back to the Future, 1947 by Meeburn Stanleyland. Let me go get that book real quick. It's right over here. I always have stacks and stacks and stacks of books, and I need to find a place for all these books. We got Dead Names, the Dark History of the Necronomicon. But here we have Back to the Future, a novel by Me Burn Stanleyland. And you can see the cover is meant to look like a newspaper. That was just for artistic purposes. But it reminds me of the newspaper in the movie. And in this book, it does mention World War II, and basically the prediction or the fiction that Me Burn wrote about was the future is very dystopian. Everyone's in a line to get food. If you don't have the card, you have to get a card. So most of the population seem to be pretty poor. It's a pretty scary universe. And he is in the line to get food, and he jumped. And the time machine in this book is a table. You get on a table, you twist some knobs. It's very strange. Kind of reminds me of a Frankenstein table, is the time machine in this book. Now, clearly the movie Back to the Future changed it to a car. And in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, they were going to make it a bus, but they're like, that's too close to the car. So let's change it to a phone booth, which is very close to the TARDIS. But he's in the food line for many hours. We're talking like 8 hours. He's waiting in line for food. When he gets to the front, they're like, where's your card? He's like, I don't have a card. You need to go to this line for your card. He goes to that line for his card. And he's in that line for hours. And then they say, where's your card to be in this line for the card? And he needs to go to the headquarters on how to get a master card. And that's half this book, is just him looking for an ID. It's definitely not the same story as the movie Back to the Future. But there is a doctor, and he is basically the Marty McFly in this story. And this is 1947. So there's 100% chance that Robert Zemeckis, the director and writer of Back to the Future, read this book because he took the title, Back to the Future. He took the idea of Doc Brown and Marty McFly, changed their ages, changed their names. And I see similar thing taking place with Rick and Morty. So, it's pretty a generic idea at this point, but I wish Me Burn Stanleyland would get a little bit more credit. I made a Wikipedia entry for Me Burn Stanleyland, and it got denied immediately. I mentioned him on the Back to the Future forums, and people were like, what is that, fake? What is that, time travel? Did someone go back in time and write a book just to lie? No, it's a true story. It's a true book. You can get it on Amazon. Lord Knows says time travel is not possible. I personally agree that practical time travel is not possible. There's only one type of time travel that I personally believe in, and I guess it doesn't matter. Everyone has an opinion. But my personal belief is a wormhole that can open from one point of the universe to the other point in the universe. You walk in, kind of like the Montauk books, except in the Montauk books, they could go to 6037. They could go into the past. They went 2,000 years into the past. But I don't think that's true. I think a wormhole is going to be real time. Then again, I've never come in contact with a wormhole. This is pure speculation. But I think wormholes do exist. I think if you walked into a stable one, you'd go from point 1 to point B. Technically speaking, surpassing the normal time restraints, technically being time travel, but not to the past or the future, just from the present to the present, just a distant location. And if you surpass space, you surpass time, because time and space are connected, as Einstein taught us. interconnected. Space-time and time-space cannot be separated. Yeah, Donnie Darko, Simon Doyle mentions, that's an interesting movie. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty cool. I saw that mask at Comic-Con, and I think it was purchased by a celebrity. And I got a picture of the mask, and then I walked away, and then I noticed the guy that was in the mask was standing right next to it, and I cut him out of the picture. But no, that was a cool movie. That was definitely a cool movie. So what's the other topics? Let's see, we got here. Magic. All right. Magic. I personally do believe in magic, and I have a very controversial magic video that a lot of people do not like. It is entitled, "There is Only One Magic Spell." And people really seem to hate this video. In this video, I say there's only one magic spell, and the magic spell I'm talking about is, and trust me, I've read many occult books. I've studied the subject pretty thoroughly, but I'm not a practitioner of the occult. And they say, "Oh, you don't practice the occult? You don't summon demons?" No, I don't. But I can research and become very familiar with the subject. I don't have to summon demons. They pretty much show up and bother me occasionally here and there. But I do believe magic is real. And the controversial video I posted was, there's only one magic spell. And what I meant to say in that video is, you can't have a magic spell, from my understanding of how magic works, without a spirit involved. If you cut a spirit out of the process, there is no magic. Magic and spirits are interconnected, kind of like Einstein said space and time are interconnected. And this is my theory. I can't prove it, but spirits and magic are interconnected. And if you're going to do some type of magic spell, and there's going to be no spirits involved, and you're just going to use the rays of your mind to emanate some magic spell, I personally think there's always a spirit involved, an intermediate spirit to an extent. And I also think spirits in these magic spells take more credit than they should get. For example, a money spell. Let's say you do a money spell and you even have a spirit that's an expert at helping you with money. And let's say you get a raise 2 months down the road. That spirit's going to take credit for it. But I personally think probably it had to do with your hard work. I don't rely on spirits. I don't rely on magic. But that's just my personal take. And it's kind of a dismal, dim, boring take from the perspective of people that really practice it and they love it. And I see that, I check out the forums, I read the books. A lot of people are stoked about magic, but it's definitely not Harry Potter. In the Harry Potter movies, you see levitation like it's nothing. But from my perspective, if levitation is happening in real life, there's a spirit holding that object. It's not some ethereal magic dust holding that object. It's a spirit. And levitation is very rare, obviously. Goes against the Harry Potter movies, but I'm talking about real life. I do think levitation does exist in real life, and I think it's always a poltergeist on the other end. So it's pretty freaky stuff. But let's see, ghosts. I was going to talk about when you go to a haunted house, and I already talked about this, but spirits will detect whether you believe in them, whether you have faith that they're there, whether you're in tune with the spirit world, I guess you could say. And they will react. And I just watched an episode of Ghost Adventures, and they didn't find much. They didn't find much at all. There were a couple spirit box communications. And I personally don't like those devices, the devices. They're just sweeping channels. And I think they could legitimately pick up a spirit's voice. But at the same time, if someone has a walkie-talkie, wouldn't it have a chance at getting into that device? But static electricity specifically. These devices detect static electricity, and it's not the only two. I have 3 professional grade static meters, and they're over there somewhere. I don't know. Let me see. Actually, I might have them right here. Here's my 2 favorite professional grade static meters, because you can turn them on and walk away, and it can detect static. Now, I wouldn't have purchased these if I didn't have a firm belief that spirits can affect static electricity. These are for factories. You point it toward some mechanism in the factory to make sure it's not overcharged. So someone touches it and shocks them. And in a circuit board factory, you can't shock the circuit board. Otherwise, you fry the circuits and you destroy the whole circuit board. So people working on a circuit board, they're going to have gloves on. They're going to have that, that little wire so they don't shock the circuit board. Perhaps this would be used in a factory kind of like that. And I bought these because I know spirits do set off, do have the ability, they're energy beings. They almost can't help but set off static electricity, whereas they seem to be able to dodge EMF, electromagnetic fields. Very similar, but this is just a static field, and when it's broken, it's set off. It's a very simple device, and it works. I've tested it out, and unlike something like this, a scientist is going to say, "What's this? I have no clue what that is. For all I know, that's a toy, pre-programmed." Well, this isn't a toy. You can see what it is. It's from ACL, Electrostatic Locator. It's a professional device, has a serial stamp on it. So this would be something scientists wouldn't be able to disregard as easily. I wanted to get as much scientific data as possible. All right. So thank you for hanging around. I appreciate it. If the show's boring, we're supposed to have Free Thinker Silver. Free Thinker Silver, 1 p.m. PST. He set up the time, and I was like, all right, because he's East Coast-ish, and it's a few hours ahead on his time, but we can still come up with something interesting. Let's see. I want to do a review of this curio right here. You probably can't read it because it's faded over time and it's upside down. Here we go. It's called DeLawrence's famous methods for experiments in mental telepathy and thought transference, mind reading, psychic phenomena, and experiments in spirit communication, published by the DeLawrence Company, Chicago, Illinois. It's a very small, very tiny booklet, but it's original. It's probably from 1917, somewhere around there. Very old, and it's original. And I see reproductions of this all the time. But when I saw an original one, I grabbed it. I'm going to do a book review. It'll be an easy book review, except I have to delicately turn the pages as to not destroy them. But I wanted to see if special information was on a special page. When things are reproduced in books, especially occult books, and a special secret is on page 33, because 33 is a very occult number. page 72. 72 is a very occult number. Page 11, page 13, whatever. These occult numbers, if there's something special on page 11, the reproduction process sometimes destroys that. They'll change the font size. They'll dump everything in the wrong place. And I noticed that specifically with this book right here, Initiates of the Flame by Manly P. Hall. This is a second or third edition, but the page placement is still original. And Manly was still alive during the publication of this version, and he approved it. And I noticed on page 33, they talk about Jesus. Not a coincidence. On page 72 is when the book ends, I believe. Not a coincidence. It talks about craft, which you could say is magic. I personally believe when the word craft is being used, they're talking about magic. It's a very subtle way to say magic. So just keep that in mind. If you see the word craft, they're not talking about arts and crafts, especially when it's a magic-themed book, talking about mysteries of the universe. But I am going to do a review of this. Do I personally believe in mind reading, psychic phenomena, spirit communication, telepathy, thought transference? I mean, I believe in the concepts are possible here and there. I'm not a psychic, so I don't have firsthand mind reading abilities, but I can tell a story. I can tell a story. I have a question. When was your last spirit? When was my last spirit encounter? My last spirit encounter. Probably, I mean, it depends. It really depends. Because I will hear creaks in the corner of the room. And I have to really gauge logically. Is that simply the temperature? Did someone change the thermostat? Because if someone changes the thermostat, wood and metal, steel, they're gonna absorb, they're gonna expand, they're gonna contract depending upon the temperature going up and down. You have to take into account some logical things. I did hear creaks in the corner of my room 2 nights ago. It could have been a spirit, but if it was, that's all there was. So my most recent encounter with a spirit that was full-blown a spirit, and I had a camera in my hand, was at the 1830s house on September 30th at 10 p.m. September 30th, 10 p.m. I had this set up. I had these 2 set up, and I posted that video. And I said, I'm going to leave. I'm going to take off. Then I'm going to go to Los Angeles. It set every single one of them off so perfectly that someone questioned whether it's even real. But it was 100% real. And it's the most cooperative that spirit has ever been. I have no contract with that spirit. I just showed up and I said, hey, can you set those off? It set them off. I don't think the spirit follows me. I think it hangs out at that location. But the last time a spirit really bothered me, I do get creaks here and there, few and far between. But about 4 months ago was when a spirit stomped around my room, about 4 months ago. And I got up and I said, get out of here. And it left. And I personally think that's the same spirit that when I had a bunch of equipment in the corner and I did the experiments. So you got to be careful. Some spirits will follow you home like a dog. You know, I went to the location. Little Peep passed away just 2 days ago. And I got 1.5 on the Mel meter. And I'm not sure if it was a spirit or not. I'm not sure. I didn't get any confirmation. It could have been electrical. But I walked around the sidewalk, around the place called The Rock, where he was supposed to perform. Rest in peace. He passed away. And human spirits don't hang out where they died. But I was hoping to get some of the energy, perhaps the negative energy, that might have influenced him to take these sad substances and accidentally have a overdose. And that's what happened. Sad situation. But I walked around twice, and it's quite a walk, and I was getting kind of tired. But in this one location, I got a 1.5, 1.6, 1.7. I think 1.8 is the highest I got. And at that point, I'm like, hey, can you confirm if you're a spirit or not? If you're intelligent. And if it doesn't want to, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't want to. 9 times out of 10, it'll rather you think it's electrical. So I can't confirm whether it is or not. But I'm going to have to turn off my cell phone because I don't want to destroy my Wi-Fi. But I was talking about L.W. DeLawrence. Oh, yeah. Okay. I have a tiny secret I want to share. I have a theory. See, L.W. DeLawrence is located in Chicago, and he has since passed on. He was a collector of occult books. He was a writer of occult books. He traveled to India. He traveled to China for the exclusive purpose of learning what their magic was and writing about it. So he kind of Americanized the magic of India. He kind of Americanized the magic of China, put it in books, and I have a couple of these books. Enough. I have a good 10 of this guy's books where I'm going to do a series. L.W. DeLawrence, occultic magician, perhaps. And I'm going to say, hey, this guy was headquartered in Chicago. And there's a book called Charmed by Darkness by Roger Morneau. And this is basically a rehash of his older book called A Trip into the Supernatural. A Trip into the Supernatural and Charmed by Darkness. I'm not advertising these. I'm not a member of his religion. But he had poltergeist encounters. And that's why I feel connected to an extent. Because he was harassed specifically for 6 months, very violently. He went to his pastor. His pastor said, hey, how you doing? And he's like, I'm doing all right. And he's like, hey, what's the problem? He's like, just a little bit of poltergeist activity. Not a big deal. The pastor's like, oh, that's freaky. That's freaky, man. And I can relate to that 100% because I have had similar encounters. Whenever I mention it at a particular church, they're going to be freaked out because they're used to telling fairy tales, whether they're true or not. They're not used to someone having spirit attacks. They don't know how to react to that. That's a little bit too real to them. Now, some pastors are going to be exorcists, for example. I haven't personally ever talked with an exorcist. Perhaps they would have different advice. I can tell by YouTube alone, there are definitely fake exorcists out there, faking exorcisms, either for show or because they're ignorant. I've definitely firsthand seen channels of an expert exorcist, and he gets something, and he gets this and that, and he's like, be gone. And he's like, I'm cured. Everything's great. Demons are a little more subtle than that. Demons don't just leave if you say one prayer and hold up a religious object. The demons are going to hang out for months, if not years. I had a Corners of Rooms experiment, and the spirit that set off that REM pod stalked me for months after I did an innocent REM pod test to see if the thing even worked. So be wary of these digital Ouija boards, and also be wary of fake exorcists that are going to pretend to exorcise the spirit out of you. Yeah, I read the live chat comments. I read them. If you have any questions, feel free to. Hey, Brandon. So, Free Thinker Silver, I sent him the link. I emailed him the link, but I can't email it from razimus@gmail.com. I can only email it from hoaxhunter.whatever because I'm logged in to obviously my channel. But let me try it one more time. Perhaps he didn't get it. All right. It's not going to work. Well, he doesn't have a Twitter, so I can't tweet him, unfortunately. But Twitter is the fastest way you can get a link to this chat. So Yo-Yo Mofo, nice name, asks again for the second time, why are the corners of rooms portals? You know, there's an episode of Ghost Adventures, has nothing to do with perhaps my research, but there's an episode where the spirit, and it's like a glimmer of light, it goes in the corners and it traces all of the corners of the ceiling. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. If that's real, perhaps spirits literally enjoy traveling like a circuit board. And for some reason, that corner is, from an energy being's perspective, a focal point they like to hang out in. I can even talk about Joe Rogan and his DMT adventures. Joe Rogan said, and I saw this repeated actually by E.A. Coetting. So perhaps the same substance is involved. Perhaps one involves no substance whatsoever. But Joe Rogan and E.A. Coetting both said the same thing, that they're in this state of consciousness, whether it's through meditation or through DMT. And they see every object in the room as stuck together. They'll see the table, they'll see the chair, they'll see the vase stuck together. And then when they get out of this state, clearly the vase is here on top of the table and the chair is over there. But when they're in this strange state, they see all these objects stuck together. So here we have Free Thinker Silver, I believe, joining us.
Oh, hey, dude. How's it going?
So you got the link.
Let me just turn my space heater off. It's kind of noisy.
Okay.
Well, I'm a little early because
it's a little early. Was it?
I wasn't sure if the Pacific, do you have daylight savings where you are? You must, right?
Oh, you're talking about the daylight savings. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's it's an hour. Like, it's technically, my clock here says 4:45, but it's actually 3:40. It's actually 3:45. So I wasn't sure whether to,
You're right. I didn't set my clocks back.
Right, but I thought
dang it.
for you. Most clocks, they just naturally. So
you're correct.
Are you saying
you're
that
correct.
You were waiting for 45 minutes for me, and you were wondering where I was?
No, it's all right. See,
okay. I had no idea. I thought maybe I was like, he probably, was also reset with the time. I didn't know about that when I proposed you on Friday. I was like, the other day, I was like, oh yeah, it's the clocks go back. They go. So
well, no big deal.
But okay.
So Brandon Young, if he wants to join us, Brandon can. Oh, yeah. He knows who you are. He just said hey to you.
Yeah, I've seen some of his stuff. It's pretty cool. Pretty good, pretty nice stuff.
Someone was asking me about corners of rooms, and it's an abstract thing. I mean, spirits like corners of rooms. That's just what I've observed.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't necessarily get in the head of the spirit and say, hey, spirit, why do you like corners of rooms? First of all, spirit's not going to answer.
Right.
Unless I open the most elaborate Ouija board session in the world, in which case I'm not going to do that. I don't do Ouija boards. I don't. When I have something like this, I'm going to say, can you set it off? Yes or no. The reason I don't delve too much farther than that is because what I've personally observed is every single ghost investigator on the planet falls hook, line, and sinker into the trick and the scam that, are you that little girl from the newspaper that died right here? The spirit's always going to say yes. It's always going to say yes, even when it's not. So it's a big fat scam. Spirits perform little tricks on us stupid humans. And I'm not involved and interested in participating in the scam. Yeah. I just want to know if it can set off the device. Therefore, there's no lie involved. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, no, it's pretty interesting. So, would you say there's like differences in between like a ghoul, like and a ghost? Like, there's all these different terminology. I mean, I don't know what to say really. I haven't had any direct experience of these things.
Well, I personally think there are nature spirits, which you could say is like a gnome or like a fairy.
Right, right.
And if you follow the history of fairies, fairies weren't always good. Thomas Sheridan of Ireland says fairies were pure evil, mischievous creatures. Only recently have they got this Disney cute little nice persona attached to them. But if you read the old fairy stories, the people of Ireland stayed away from fairies and leprechauns.
Right.
And perhaps the same is in Scandinavia. They stayed away from the gnomes. I don't know.
Yeah.
But here we have the chupacabra, and I would definitely want to stay away from that,
Isn't that like a desert, like one of those weird dog-like strange things that kills goats and sheep in the desert? Is that what the chupacabra?
I mean, I don't necessarily believe they exist.
Yeah, there's some weird photographs out there. I don't know. I mean, it's like you can't believe some of the material. It looks too sensational. By the way, thank you for pointing out Secure Team. I always thought there was something strange, a little too sensational with that material. And then when I looked into it, it was like, oh, John Razimus was right. Like, this guy's done a lot of.
UFO Theater does some pretty good debunkings on them, and UFO Theater he has like a professional degree in editing and all this and that, and very low views compared to the millions of Secure Team 10. Sensationalism sells, gets views, the tabloids pick it up, and saying it's fake gets no views, and you get a lot of people calling you a shill and an agent of this particular agency, just trying to suppress the truth. So it's a lose-lose situation.
It makes a situation where there's no common narrative. It's like there's no longer you get people saying everything's a lie, man, nothing's true at all, it's a big simulation, you can't believe anything. Like, so I'm reading about medieval history these days. I've been doing. So is that like there's this channel called The Crow House? I don't know if you've seen it. It's like he's like some Australian or British American, like I'm pretty sure he's an expat, and he appears on RT sometimes. Like that's like a mainstream news channel, but kind of alternative. And then but he has a channel and he puts out good material. He's a good speaker, he's an intelligent guy, but he's got this thing where he mentions like there was a mud flood, and he's not saying for sure there was this mud flood. He doesn't provide too much detail. It's like there's evidence for some terrible mud flood in Europe, so that like literally more than 1,000 years of our last history since supposedly the time of Christ, it just didn't happen, and everything is a lie, and we don't know anything. And it's like, my goodness, like he could be right, but if I can't believe all of this, destructionist kind of, just blow up everything, and then what do we have? We have no inheritance, and we're just floating in space. I like to think that real people existed in the past. They recorded their experiences. They talked about spirits, demons, God, you know, all these things. And yeah, the past is pretty murky, and maybe the planet wasn't always spinning the same, but there's a symbolically, and culturally, there's an inheritance for us to learn from. But we're kind of cut off. We're too ignorant these days.
No, I agree. The ancients, just because they didn't have TV and the internet and radio and all this distraction, they're supposedly idiots. I think they were geniuses when it came to pointing out spirits existing.
Oh,
and yes, they gave them names. They gave them names because who knows, you know, just for fantastical reasons. But I believe their fairy tales sometimes are based on a real encounter of a spirit.
Yeah.
You know, they had a legitimate fear of the woods. There's a lot of stories of haunted forests. They talk about it over and over and over. And they exaggerate the haunted forest is full of these trolls and goblins. But they're really talking about spirits. And
true. They're talking about that sort of stuff. And it's like what happened in the 19th or 20th century. Like something happened where we were, I don't want to say it was like an elite, you know, controlled program to brainwash us, but we changed our worldview. We became more materialistic. We stopped thinking of like, oh, spirits and elves, and that's just for children. But of course, you know, we're the people in the past. It's you know, take them at their own word is what I'm saying. Don't just dismiss them. And in the same light, I want to get your feedback. There's this guy. Let me just go to the text here. There's this guy called Apollonian Germ, and he talks about paganism. He's a good speaker. He seems to be in his early 20s. He has his own YouTube channel. I recommend it. He's a smart guy. He knows all about the ancient Greeks, and he was mentioning this video about oracles, Greek oracles, and he was saying he knows more about the Greeks than I do, but basically he was saying they had ways of getting intelligence, and it's a mystery. How did they get? Well, that's what he was saying. It's a mystery. I mean, they dwell in their temples, and they would be consulted by generals, by leaders about important events. He didn't go into detail about what he meant by gathering intelligence, but I think it's assumed. You know, I made the assumption, you know, about worldly events, just like people still do today. And I left a comment. Because, well, basically, in the video, he was proposing that it was passenger birds, passenger pigeons. They were trained to go like a long distance, fly from Greece to Turkey, fly across, or, you know, fly a very long distance, maybe carrying a message or who knows what. And that's how they could get this intelligence. And that just seems preposterous to me, because I'm not denying that birds are incredible animals and they can be trained and they have been trained to carry messages, but that's kind of dismissive. It's like, it's interesting that a guy who's so interested in pagans, he wouldn't take them at their own word. That's what I found interesting, because I rather take them, and I left the comment. I said, it's interesting if the oracles were using birds to communicate over long distances. Could it be that they were also in contact with spirits? Why should it be one or the other? I'm not very knowledgeable about those ancient Greeks, but to me, the activity of the oracles seems similar to what shamans have always done across the various continents. Probably very risky for them to talk to such entities. Maybe some are good, but how can I be sure? And then he'd also mentioned that the CIA would be trying to use people like this. And I from what I know, I said, sure, yeah, that could definitely happen. Anyways, his response on the YouTube comment section, I was lucky to get a response. He's like, Freethinker Silver, you know, saying they were in contact with spirits would explain what exactly? If not spirits, why not pixies or fairies, leprechauns or ghosts or demons? What would be the difference? What would that explain? You might as well be saying they were, quote, in contact with X. It explains nothing. And so that was his response.
Well, that's a disbelieving, dismissive, atheistic people.
I mean, I wrote him a response back, but I'm not going to read it here. But you know what I would say. You know, some of this stuff I've already said here. So, what's your response to that? Sorry,
you know, if you've never had a spirit encounter, it's a foreign concept and it's fake.
Yeah.
I personally was choked out by 3 feet tall spirits.
Yeah.
And it happened. I was awake.
Yeah.
And before they choked me out, they knocked stuff over in my room because they were poltergeists. And after they choked me out, they knocked stuff over in my room.
Yeah.
And I was awake the whole time.
Yeah. No,
So
I definitely.
when you have an encounter like that,
Yeah.
I consider the oracle could have been possessed by a spirit and could have legitimately talked to the priestesses involved. You know, it reminds me of voodoo, kind of the stereotypical version, but Earthquake Kelly says he walked in on a voodoo priestess and she was having a conversation with a doll. And the thing is, the doll was talking back in a demonic voice.
Whoa.
And that's what he noticed. And ever since then, he cut himself off from anything to do with magic.
Wow.
And if that happened to me, I too would be freaked out.
Yeah, no,
but I had my own freaky encounter.
Pretty creepy.
But this guy, he's never had an encounter. So you have to really just accept that some people are in their own world. They don't see the unseen world. I don't see the unseen world except for little subtle things here and there. Yeah. And even then, you have to pick up a device to prove it. And then when you prove it to yourself, people say the evidence is fake. So it's really hard to prove. It's almost impossible.
It's hard to prove this sort of stuff for sure. And I mean, you'll never. I mean, we'll have success in the future. People who want to prove this, but to some extent, you know, we'll never. It's not, you know, because some people are never going to be on that wavelength, and that's it's a cultural thing. I mean, there's subcultures within cultures, and I don't want to. There is truth, though. I'm not saying that, you know, all truth is relative, but some people they don't accept that because that would affect, I guess, how you think about your own life. And it's like, whoa, I got to start paying attention a bit more to certain aspects. Take care of my own soul, because souls do exist, and this idea that a soul is somehow just your body, and that when you die, well, that's you had a soul, but now you don't have a soul. That doesn't make any sense to me. Some atheist said that to me, but the soul is a spirit. The whole essence of what makes a soul special is that it's not defined by the body. It may exist through the body, but it is not of the body. It is not really physical. And I know, you know, people take this stuff too far, and I'm not a quantum physicist. Very few people are, so I don't. But that doesn't mean you can't sometimes mention quantum physics. You can say, well, there's real experiments that have shown that reality is basically non-physical. It's illusory. It behaves as particle and wave in the double slit experiment, where observation of these particles causes it to behave like a particle or a wave, depending on whether you're looking or not looking. And I know, yeah, you know, people who don't know too much about science, we can get carried away and then start saying, oh, it's a simulation and nothing's real. It's like, whoa, back up. Quantum physics is not supposed to be some religion. It's just, you know, showing us a bit something deeper. Like, don't get carried away here and say things matter. Things matter what we do here. Yeah.
The people that believe in this simulation stuff.
Yeah.
If they want to break out of the simulation,
yeah,
you can get some ghost equipment and say, hey, this isn't logical, because they don't believe in ghosts.
Oh, yeah.
But even from a non-ghost believing perspective, setting up a device like this and saying, hey, can you set it off? And yes, it does.
Yeah.
You think they would be interested in the subject, even from a non-spirit perspective, just like a broken matrix perspective, but they're not. They're 0% interested in anything spirit related.
Yeah, it's true. There's spirits is one of, like, it's a much more meaningful thing to explore than I don't want to offend anyone, but, you know, chemtrails. Like, okay, I've heard about chemtrails, but it's like, yeah, they could. I don't know. I haven't looked into it, but spirits, it's like, yeah, that's a historical thing. That's something that all the cultures have mentioned over thousands of years. I'd rather spend more energy learning about that And because we have so much disinformation, so much other theories going on, it's just a big, you have to use your intuition at the end of the day, is what I'm saying. When you decide, because you only have so much time and energy to spend in your life if you want to research something. I spend a lot of time reading about history and other subjects too, I spend time, trying to make videos and talk about my own experiences in life too. But that all takes time and energy. We don't have forever. So there are some things that are more important to learn about than others. Like,
so have you heard about this Roger Morneau story? Have you heard anything about it?
No, I can't say I know that one, but I like the cover.
Well, Roger Morneau, you probably, I don't know if you've seen the YouTube videos. He joined a devil worship organization in Montreal, Canada.
Oh, right.
Back in the 40s, 1940s. So this was a long time ago. He said he was suckered into it by his friend going to a seance. And he said the seance was a front, like a bait and switch, where they pretend it's just a seance, but really they recruit people into the spirit worshiping organization from there, based on their reaction to the seance.
Right.
For example, some girl, her dead sister appeared as a full-blown spirit manifestation, and
really?
She passed out. She passed out on the floor.
Like from fright? Or just
from being too scared.
Right.
So
a seance, like
they probably wouldn't recruit her because she's too scared of the subject.
Right.
Obviously.
A seance is what? The people sit down, they make a circle, they chant to something.
Yeah.
That's basically But
the difference in this book, the seances involve demons pretending to be love.
Right. Yeah, I was talking about some of your ideas in a recent video before Halloween, and I was saying do not practice the occult, obviously, but some people were saying, oh no, you're just talking about the dark occult, and then they were saying there's a white occult, and I'm like, well, I don't really know much about that. It sounds like a trick to me, but what would be your response to those people?
Well, in my opinion, there's one magic.
Right.
And it's what it is. It's not black or white. It just is something that involves communication with spirits, and you go down a negative hole, no matter whether you're claiming to be white, gray, or black.
Yeah.
It's always the same path. Yes, you can have negative, ill intent and want to put a curse on someone. That's definitely black magic. But in my opinion, communicating with spirits to have a love charm is also black magic.
Exactly.
Communicating with spirits to be happy and successful and get a bunch of money, or even if it's to help someone else with money. It's all black magic from my perspective.
I totally agree with what you're saying, because like I'm not a moral philosopher, and I'm not any better than anyone else, but you can look at a lot of these questions from a moral angle. And it's like, if we're talking about magic, one of the next questions I want to ask is, how do we narrow down what is the occult and what's not? Because but for now, like if we're talking about, Harry Potter stuff, casting spells, love potions, that sort of seance stuff, it's like, why are you even interested in this? Are you really of such a pure heart? Are you really so mature that you want to help humanity? Is that what you're telling me the average person who's using these supposed white magic is interested in doing? No, come on. Most people would say I want something, right? That's innocent enough. We all want something in life, but it's like, no, you have to have God in the equation, because all things are possible through God. And I'm not specifically a Christian or any religion. I'm a spiritual person. I do pick and choose, and people would criticize me for looking at different traditions, but God has to be there, because he can work magic too, all sorts of things. I used to believe a lot in the law of attraction, which is similar to magic, that you can do a lot of affirmations, you can say something a lot, and it works sometimes, but basically over many years, I realized that you can't count on it, you can't rely on it. It's not the ultimate truth. All things have to come from God, and people can define God however they want. I know I'm not trying to put it in any specific religious angle there, but yeah, that's why I agree with you that the white occult, it's moving in the wrong direction. even perhaps maybe shamans in the past, maybe they were, but maybe they could use occult forces for some good, something we could call good for helping their people. However, it's interesting. How did the shamans live? Were they just like regular people? No, they were pretty much, I wouldn't say they were outcasts, but they're basically like hermits. They lived apart from most people, and they talked to spirits, and they often had a lot of power and could be feared. I've met, like I've told you, someone in Africa, in Ghana, that was like a priest, a traditional priest who communicated with spirits. And I didn't mean to initiate this, but by my involvement in business over there, there was an electrician that had cheated us of money we suspected, and he had basically taken money from us to complete the wiring on this house, but then he probably spent the money and claimed that it was stolen. And so, oh, someone stole it. I installed it, but it was taken. But my good friend Paul, who's from Ghana, he's a Ghanaian, I'm going along with my good friend Paul. I totally trust him. That's how I ended up in this situation. Otherwise, I wouldn't go specifically to use anything myself. But as an observer, I was there. We went to this guy's village. We had to approach him in traditional clothing, in the kente cloth, on our knees. He's in a village of many people of his family, and you do have to pay him for the ceremony. And some people would laugh at that, say, "Oh, he's taking advantage of you." But of course, you have to pay him, just like throughout human history. Shamans, they require something. I mean, it's a livelihood. They're doing that. And well, maybe this guy has more. He's pretty well off, so he probably has other stuff. And then he sends you to do the ceremony, and it involves animal parts, beads, small bones with animals, basically throwing these strips of cloth on the ground and chanting or speaking to the spirit. And they eventually determined that the electrician was indeed lying, because you can ask a simple question. You can ask, what is it you want answered? And I suppose this gets into murky moral territory, because the spirits can be sent to make someone fall ill. And that's not something we should do. That never became necessary, because once the electrician knew that we went to the priest, eventually he confessed and he gave us the money back. Because in Africa, most people know about witchcraft. It's common knowledge. Even in the politicians on television, all you're going to see is witchcraft on the third or fourth channel. Everything is about love and infidelity, and then witchcraft. Those are the two main themes.
Wow.
Anyways. So
that's a cool story. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah,
you could ask a simple question. How would you get the answer? The priest would interpret it.
Yeah, they basically it's basically divination, and the Bible says, you will be abominable. So watch out for that. But yeah, it's like reading how they fall, reading how those objects fell while trying to speak to the spirit. And it wasn't even the priest himself; it was one of his assistants. But it's in his family. He probably had like multiple wives. I'm almost certain that probably his family was probably 200 people there in that village.
Wow. So we have Brandon here joining us. Yeah. Brandon, we're talking about, I guess, black and white magic.
Right.
Do you have any opinions on that?
Yeah. Well, ask Brandon. Hey, Brandon, what's your opinion on that? Like black or white magic? Is that a trick, or is white magic safe? Can you go into that and not have any risk of being corrupted by demons or what have you?
No, if you can you guys hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
All right, good.
A little bit quiet, but we can hear you.
Is it a little quiet? Okay, I can grab a microphone in a second. But yeah, basically, I think there's no difference between black and white magic. I think that they're pretty much, like you said, you will, you might get corrupted by it, Something like Ouija board and tarot cards. Something I was going to bring up. I just watched The Haunting of Hill House, the first episode.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lady, that says, he's like, well, they found in the attic these tarot cards and Ouija boards. And I told my Ouija board experience on here. And that was marketed as a white light sort of fun game, And I'll tell you what, it's not, So, yeah, I don't know. I don't believe in the white magic. Black. I believe if white magic, I mean, I would just call that like divinity, like saintly,
Hmm.
like the saint, not just saints. I'm talking like bodhisattvas. Any tradition you take, any person that tries to alleviate suffering from the world and dies for like helping other people, basically. I think. I mean,
Right.
that's white magic in my book. You can call
Right.
it white. I think it's just like, you know, sanctification or something like that.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah.
but thanks for having me on. You guys were talking about the wilderness. You know, I'm stuck right in the middle of these woods. I'm like really in the valley of these woods here. And I'd like to show you guys. Let's see if this works. Okay. Just gonna flip the. Can I flip the camera? Yeah, I can. Okay. So I'm staying at this resort here, and over there's some like windmills. I can't. Well, anyway, but it goes all around and behind, and it's just like woods galore out in Tanglewood. You've probably heard heard of Tanglewood, but so we're close by there.
Cool.
That's
And
awesome.
it's got a very Shining-esque feeling to it. It really does. The hotel. It's pretty interesting. So
That's pretty cool.
That and a little bit of what's the hotel from Twin Peaks? I forget. The Great Northern is the name of it.
What part of the States is this?
Oh, this is in right on the border of Massachusetts and New York.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so like deep woods, like Williamsburg, Williamstown, I mean, and Lenox and Lee, that area.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Is that are you from there?
No, I'm from Boston. It was just like 3
Oh,
miles
cool.
the other way.
Nice.
Moving out to Santa Barbara though soon. I got my girlfriend. I'm here. She came out surprise visit last second.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's from Santa Barbara, which is not not a short flight.
Right. Yeah, that's like 4 hours at least. Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, it's like 6 hours, 7 hour flight.
7 hours. Right, I forgot. I used to go because I had family in Pasadena. My aunt's
me too.
in Pasadena, and my cousin grew up in LA in Pasadena, but he lives in the Bay Area right now. I haven't been in like 7 or 8 years, but when I was a kid, up till the middle of being mid-teens, my family went to California like once every 2 years or once every 3 years. So it's kind of like a childhood memory, but I haven't been back in a while. I haven't seen too much of the States, but that's one of the areas. Yeah. Can't say I've ever been to Boston, but
where are you from?
Toronto, Ontario. So
I'm in really? Okay.
Geographic region as you.
From Oakville.
Oh yeah, my grandpa lived in Oakville for like 25 years.
Really?
Or something like that. Yeah, he bought a house in Oakville when he moved there from Montreal. So we used to go, but it's just I don't have too much memories of Oakville. It's just a big suburb, a pleasant, nice suburb. It probably still is pretty nice, but
Toronto's a great city. I'm gonna go grab headphones. I'll be right back. Okay?
Sure.
All right.
So,
yeah, John, do you live in Arizona or California? Like I don't.
I live
time in California, but I couldn't pinpoint you down what state you actually live in.
I live in California, but
okay.
I sometimes jump back to Arizona. See,
right, you never mentioned, but I saw some of your videos, and I was like, I don't know
the,
in California. Like,
it's sort of the witness protection program. See,
somewhere out there. That's okay. I would never ask you anything too specific.
Occasionally, I get an email, and someone's like, "Hey, I just moved to Palm Springs. I know you live there. Let's hang out." But I don't live in Palm Springs.
Yeah. So
that's a stalker trying to fish for information.
Right.
I have a couple stalkers, and they're not too bad. Hopefully, unless I'm dead, then it's too bad.
No worries. Yeah, I'm sure. The state is all right, but I live in Toronto, and Toronto's a big city, so obviously, I wouldn't film my street. I wouldn't show people like, oh yeah, this is my street. This is my house. You see, it's like, nah. I live in Northwest Toronto. That's about it.
Yeah, you never want to give exact details.
Yeah, of course. There's all sorts of crazy people on the internet.
Yeah.
But what can I say? So, Boston, California. So, John, you have pretty nice weather, I gotta say. In California, you guys are blessed.
Is it rainy over there, or is it cold?
Well, yeah, man. I mean, I'm already wearing my winter jacket. I mean, I'm a skinny guy. So for me, winter basically starts in November and it ends in early April or even mid-April.
Well, I bought a winter coat,
Yeah.
and it's too warm to wear it. So that's my problem.
Right. That would be great. But I know it's not too extreme. I know you guys get some cold weather, but it's not.
Yeah, no, but it's funny. Like in California, you know, if it's like 65, 70, people who wear scarves, they'll surf with like a snow cap on.
Really?
Right, John? You know, you've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's those like surfboard dudes, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, man, am I coming in better now? Now that I got this
Yeah, that's a bit louder. Yeah.
Great.
I'm glad that it works for me. This is my first live stream I've ever participated in. I didn't know what to expect. When I clicked the join button, I thought there was going to be some other interface before it's like, no, you're right in the video now. So I'm glad I had everything set up in my room. It's like, didn't look too messy or anything, because that'd be pretty funny. It
popped up. It's pretty easy to use.
Yeah.
So the topic, we can talk about different stuff. It doesn't have to be magic, ghost, time travel, etc. It could be anything.
What do you think about the moon? Do you think there's alien bases there? Do you think that there were covert American missions to the moon, like more than what we heard of?
Mm-hmm.
Well, personally, unless you can trace it with money, I don't think so. You know, it costs a lot of money to get there.
Yeah, good point.
I guess a black project could have gone there. Just follow the money. You can find out.
Accounted for money, like 500 billion or something like that. It came out a few years back, I think, that there was. But I don't know if that stretches back to the 60s. It might be a more recent thing. But the Pentagon was like, yeah, there's like I'm not saying for sure it was 500 billion, but it was something like that. I'm pretty sure it was the Pentagon or the military. They were like, yeah, it's not accounted for. Sorry.
Wow. So my dad worked on Apollo, I don't know, I think 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 or something.
Your dad,
my dad actually worked on the Apollo missions, and he's an electrical engineer. And he's a mechanical engineer with a master's in electrical engineering and a master's in
man, that's amazing.
The other one, and mechanical engineering. And he was a draftsman. He did the blueprints for the rockets, for the module. He did the blueprints. He was paid as a professional. And there's all these people saying we didn't go to the moon, but my dad was paid for it. So we did.
Right. I believe that's like what we were saying earlier. We were talking about earlier about like how much of the narrative can you dismiss and still be grounded, in something. To me, to deny the moon landings is to throw out. Yeah, that's too unreasonable. That's why I didn't even suggest that, because it's like, yeah, stuff can be faked, but if you consider the general context, and if you have still some shred of faith in mankind, then I'm pretty sure we did go to the moon. And who knows what actually happened there? Maybe some things happened there that we don't know. Maybe there were other attempts, but what you said about the money, John, and the fact that your dad worked there, I don't have anything up on that. You have a better perspective than I do, so it's pretty convincing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe something psychedelic did happen. Maybe when they went there, maybe they had visions. Maybe they saw lights. I don't know. But George W. Bush, before he left office, he said, let's build a moon base. And everyone said he's a drunk, crazy guy.
Right.
And immediately the moon base was canceled. So that's why we don't have a moon base. It's too bad, Well, I'm not a big fan of his politics, but I like the moon base idea,
No, I like it too. We got to go there.
Bill Gates, I was reading about this back, I think, in like the early 2000s, is that, Popular Mechanics and Scientific American journals like this would say, we got to go send these crafts to the moon because you can actually engineer technology up there in zero gravity. And so you can engineer all these metals and different nanotechnology and biotech stuff. And it would be really profitable. If you can I guess supposedly, you know, they're trying to get these mining vessels onto asteroids, which could just mine for water, which or not just water and all kinds of like silica and gold, and like there's more gold and precious metals in one asteroid than like all of China, or you know, it's pretty crazy the amounts in some of these asteroids.
I wonder if there was this theory that it's all from a planet that was destroyed a long time ago.
Yeah, Tiamat.
Yeah, Tiamat or something like that. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Tiamat.
Yeah, that's the kind of Joseph Farrell Babylonian conspiracy, speculative fiction. Yeah. You know, they thought that Mars was a moon that orbited this planet, Tiamat, and then
the exploded planet.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the asteroid belt, they think. But, you know, John, you know, one of the reasons I love John and people, you know, is that, you know, he took a hard look at like the shine. You know, remember that theory that came out of Kubrick, you know, it's still out there, that he, you know, somehow hoaxed or you know, the moon landings or filmed the moon landings. I mean, it's all over popular culture. Right. And, you know, like, you know, to John's credit, like, you know, I was kind of on that hype for a little bit. I was like, wow, there might be something to it. Danny in The Shining, you know, he's wearing the Apollo 11 sweater, you know, things like that. You know, all these the Jay Widener kind of conspiracy theory stuff. Right. Room 237 or whatever, you know, or 236, 237. And, you know, all that. But, you know, there's so much evidence for us going to the moon. Oh, yeah. You know, and it's not just the money. Like if John's dad worked on a project, and like you know, my girlfriend's dad worked on project at NASA too. Yeah. And a couple or at JPL and stuff. And sometimes they could be designing blueprints for something they don't know what the end product is going to be. Right. So, you know, you know, and a lot of the money, where the money comes from, and I did a video on this a little bit. I think a lot of it comes from, it's covered, and we've known this for years, under the defense spending. You know, we have a $1 billion, more than the entire world combined defense budget. And that's to sustain high technology industry, which the United States, you know, thrives in, you know.
Yeah, they have way higher technology.
Right.
Yeah, my dad works on satellites today.
Oh, whoa.
And some of the TV channels even. And you know how the flat earthers don't believe in satellites?
Right, yeah. No.
All you got to do is find a flat earther with a satellite dish, tell them to knock down the satellite dish, and if their satellite TV turns off, bam, the earth is not flat.
Yeah.
Well, even communication, like even if you just like that guy Eric Dubay, who's like the flat earth expert or whatever, was going to debate Neil deGrasse Tyson on Joe Rogan, and someone put on the comment section, all right, this is what would happen. Eric Dubay opens up his laptop in Thailand or wherever he lives, and then Neil deGrasse Tyson or Joe Rogan opens up his, end of debate, because there would be no communication without the satellites. You know what I mean? Stuff like, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, they just want to keep taking it down a rabbit hole. They'll find some way to explain it, but it'll just they'll just moving off into space.
Yeah.
Figuratively speaking, yeah. I can't surrender all of that. I have to believe in some basic things. But I don't know. I have no idea. There was this weird theory that, you know, because everything has a vortex, there would be some way into the Earth through the poles. And I'm pretty sure they have many holes in the ends of the Earth. But it's an interesting energetic. Like you see it with apples and oranges, and it's like, oh, I don't know if there's a way into the Earth. I have no idea. It's an interesting idea to think like energetically. I don't know what you guys think about that. But yeah,
well, there's definitely north and south poles, and the clouds sometimes go around it, and then you can see a hole in the clouds, but that doesn't keep going into the Earth. People show those photos from NASA.
Right? Yeah. There's no. We have flown over the poles. Yeah, weird stuff can happen. You know, compasses can go. You know.
You know what's also weird as you think about, and is that the sun is a gas giant, right? Basically. And so there's a lot of like holes in the sun, pretty much. Like, like they say that the sun is the portal for ET. One of the comments I left was that, you said that the fairies kind of went away and the elves went away with the industrial age, which is something that Tolkien lamented, and wrote about. Well, what happened with what do you see when the industrial age starts to happen, the early 1900s, late 1800s, is the rise of the UFOs, which is interesting. So, like, maybe it's these are shape-shifting, not in that stupid way, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, they didn't like the Earth when in the industrial age, so they remanifested in the form of UFOs and the same source, same energy, or who knows?
Yeah,
it's a logical strategy. These entities manifesting as dwarves or fairies and gnomes and leprechauns, they see all this technology and they kind of mirror it, kind of mimic it in their own way. It's interesting.
Exactly.
That's very comprehensive outlook on it. That's pretty cool. I never thought of that before. Yeah, there's just Go ahead.
I was just gonna say Carl Jung wrote like one of the best books to this day, still holds up. And I don't agree with everything Carl Jung ever said, of course, but he wrote about the UFO, and one of the first UFO books was Carl Jung. I think it was called like the UFO or something. You could look it up. But he said he really looked into it. I don't think he reduced it to what we are basically is like, spiritual entities that are negative mostly, and that can oppress and appear and do all these things to you. But it's a really interesting book nonetheless, because he ties it into the end of the industrial age, and that the mind has to create something that goes beyond it, in a way, and that's why you have like these crafts but a lot of that stuff too is based on, unfortunately, the Billy Meyer stuff. And someone who, Corey Good and people like that, they're starting to use Billy Meyer because they think people have forgotten about Billy Meyer and stuff. And like, well, even Billy Meyer was right. Look at his photographs. And it's like, those photographs are terrible.
Who's starting to use that?
Corey Good and David Wilcock and the Spear Being Line.
Oh, Corey Good and David Wilcock. Oh my.
Yeah.
Those,
I used to
he's been debunked so many times that, like you say, people forgot about it. But the number one comeback is he has one arm. How could he fake this stuff with one arm?
Right.
Human beings are more ingenious than that. Human beings can build the pyramids. I don't think aliens did that. And human beings can definitely do some, what is it called? See, I'm not an expert at hoaxing UFOs, but it's double exposures. He did a lot of double exposures, and he took a lot of photographs of the TV, NASA cartoons, and said they were real out of the porthole of a flying saucer. And that's when he's busted to me after taking a good 50 photos of the television set, claiming it's in outer space or whatever. So he claims it was switched with the Men in Black. That's the cheapest excuse I could think of.
Yeah, and I mean, and you also, and that can be, the Billy Meyer became a cult too. You have that guy, Trash Can Lid Man, Garbage Lid Man, who is a gangster. I would almost pretty much a gang stalker of John's and mine. And, he looks like an evil devil. Sorry.
I'll tell you this. Out of my videos, there have been more spam bots or just fake accounts created to leave comments negative.
Whoa, really?
We're talking the level of trolling on my Billy Meyer videos involves someone pretending to be pro Billy Meyer and someone pretending to be anti Billy Meyer, just so the pro guy can fight himself and win the fight. And it's the same guy.
Billy Meyer made pictures claiming to be what exactly? What's the story? Sorry, I don't know.
Oh, Billy Meyer is from Switzerland. He took photographs of some bowls made out of just regular steel bowls, and some garbage can lids. And he had different kitchen implements. And he was very creative in creating like a wedding cake UFO and all these different flying saucer beam ships. And then he said they offered him a mechanical arm and he would be able to prove that he was the ambassador of the Palladians. And he said, no, I don't need that mechanical arm. I'm good. That's his story in a nutshell, I guess.
Sensational story. That's hilarious.
I don't need that mechanical arm. Yeah.
But there were guys that hate you guys for talking about the paranormal or hoaxes or.
Well, this guy Michael Horn
create bot accounts just to come after you.
Well, John can tell us his history in a second if he wants to.
Yeah.
But like mine, I know that Michael Horn to this day is like people, even MUFON despises him. Even Jimmy Church despises him. Even though like the whole community despises him, and then he's there to say they're wrong, they're the hoaxers, and he's kind of right, but you know, he's the guy at a MUFON, one guy at a MUFON conference or UFO conference that will go up, interrupt some lecture and start yelling about Billy Meyer. Look at the evidence. Here's the paper I wrote. And he's just a mean dude, you know, very rude and I'm very upset. But it's a very culty thing, you know. It's really weird.
Yeah. A lot of this stuff can get pretty culty. Someone was mentioning, but sorry, John, who's going after you? I'll follow up.
I mean, it's not too bad anymore. But when I see no avatar, no view count, nobody's arguing on a thread for like a week straight with 100 comments, I just delete the whole thread and I ban both of them.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Because it's a scam. It's a scam because apparently people trying to join this cult come across my video. They're like, maybe I shouldn't join the cult. And I'm a threat. I'm a threat to the cult.
Yeah, there's a lot of cults out there. Yeah, my goodness. Someone mentioned David Wilcock and Corey Good, and I know John, you've talked about how the Blue Avians is, you know, not a real thing. So I don't know these guys. Maybe you've looked into them better, but I've seen Corey Good in interviews and I've seen a lot of David Wilcock stuff. You know, I don't really watch him anymore because I kind of like watched him for a time, got kind of tired of him. He has an amazing charisma. But then he's claiming that he's like the reincarnated version of Edgar Casey. It's like, for one thing, why would if you were, why the
David
hell
Wilcock, he blocked me on Twitter.
Really?
And I wasn't even mean about it. I just said, you're not the reincarnation of Edgar Casey.
Yeah,
Edgar Casey read the Bible every single day.
Yeah.
Do you read the Bible every single day? If you're the same person, you might have the same personality. You might read the Bible every day. I don't read the Bible every day. That's just a fact I know about Edgar Casey.
Right.
He claimed he got his seership from reading the Bible every day. That's what he claimed. And so I wanted to see if anything similar isn't with David Wilcock. And his response was blocking me from Twitter. That was his response. It tells me that he's a very immature individual, and he doesn't like it when people say he's not the reincarnation of Edgar Casey.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like a chill guy. He doesn't seem, for someone who claims to meditate a lot, you know, he's not
well, even worse than that is Corey Good. If you
right.
Free Thinker Silver. Yeah. If you look into him, and you can go into my channel. I'm not promoting it, but I might as well. Just read the 26-page restraining order that Corey Good had put on him in 2015 by his former employers. After working there for less than 2 months, and he made up this whole thing about them coming to visit him and like putting a knife through magazines and putting like a bullet on the windshield. He's like, I don't know who could have done this, and he uploaded it to YouTube instead of calling the cops or anything like that. He uploaded it to YouTube and then emailed it to the Darling employees, his supervisors who fired him, and they were like, this guy's crazy. He's obviously suffering from PTSD. We're going to put a restraining order on him.
Yeah.
You know, forever. Yeah. So, and the thing is these documents have been out there for a long time, like, okay, since 2015, just now. I mean, you can show this to people who believe in Corey Good now, and they'll just be like, oh, that's fake news or whatever, you know?
Right, right.
Some of them, it will wake them up. But, like, a lot of people haven't really concentrated on the fact that every little narcissistic personality disorder, every lying thing that he's done can be seen in that restraining order on the record. They transcribe the YouTube video on the record, like every single word, every mumbling word, everything. And so you know what that YouTube video was like, you know?
Right.
So, I mean, the guy's crazy. Anyway.
Yeah, he's not okay. He needs help. Someone help him, really.
No, yeah.
Yeah, someone said, I will give Wilcott credit for leaving Gaia. Darren Prosser says that. You know, that's a good point. Gaia is horrible.
That was like a paid channel he had, right? Like,
yeah, Gaia is, you pay like $9.99 to watch knockoff videos of ancient aliens, but
right.
they're different aliens and they're different people. Instead of archaeologists saying that might be aliens, you have full-blown, seemingly out there characters saying they see aliens on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And they talk to them. My opinion on that is either they're lying, there's a huge chance of that, or if they are communicating with a non-tangible entity that isn't leaving them a physical alien device in their hand, then they're talking with a spirit, if it's real. On the long shot that it's real. It's a spirit and it's not an extraterrestrial, would be my personal point. If it's an extraterrestrial, why don't they just give them a physical object? Here's some alien technology.
Right.
Easy. And you know, for someone like Corey Good, who claims to always be in contact with these beings, like every week, like new update from the, and listen to the name of them. There's a race of beings that he's in contact with called the Golden Head. No, what is it? The Upside Down Yellow Triangle aliens. I mean, that's just like lazy. You know what I mean? Like that's just such lazy lying. You know what I mean? Yeah, but he has this whole fantasy constructed, and then he comes out with a comic book, and you realize like this is all about entertainment and fiction. So is it fiction? Is it real? Are you telling the truth or what? So he comes up with this comic book called Return of the Guardians. And I pointed out there was a guy on there that looked like Drax, right? Pointed that out 5 days, like maybe 10 days ago. And then about 3-4 days ago, we find out that Marvel is pursuing to sue, possibly sue the Spear Being Alliance and Corey Good for trademarking and coming out with this comic book.
Oh my goodness.
You know, which was a disaster anyway. And they had to cancel their masquerade ball that they're going to have on October 31st. And, you know, but they're all about white light, love and light, you know.
Love and light.
Yeah, but look at the Solar Temple, the cults of the UFO. Rancho Santa Fe, where they had the Hale Bop cult. What was it called? Heaven's Gate.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, hearing about the Hale Bop thing.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing, man. I mean, it's real. Like you get these people believing in UFOs. I mean, they're very manipulative. You know what I mean? That's why it's good for people to be on that trail, you know, and especially John, who's really on the trail of, you know, really collecting scientific data, in all different sorts of ways, not just like the EVPs or the static or whatever. I mean, even just the video footage of the timing of cattle. You know what I mean? All that is good data, in my opinion.
That's amazing data. Yeah, like 20 or 30 years ago, before the internet, it would be harder to build that data and say, hey, I recorded something here. Now we've got the internet, we've got all these videos out there, and a lot of them are hoaxes, of course. Maybe even most of them are hoaxes, but you know, it only take what's the saying? It only takes one white crow to show that all crows are not black, and you could take that perspective of paranormal stuff, but yeah, it takes someone like John who's doing all the research, and I've been meaning to ask you, John, like, how do you have all the energy to put out all this content and all these videos? And I mean, I'm pretty lucky in life. Like, I don't even have a regular job, so I'm pretty blessed, but I don't know how I only put out 1 or 2 videos a week, or not even like, you know, and
Well, you know, this is my second video this week, so it depends. I mean, I'm working on a documentary. I'm going to try to get out by the end of the year. It's not going to be sensational, but I will try to do the soundtrack myself. I'm just going to pick up a keyboard and try to do something. I never use stock music because you never know.
Yeah,
If
right.
the video gets popular, let's say the video gets 100,000 views. Magically, the person who wrote that is going to say, hey, I want it 50%. I want 100%.
Yeah, I tried using it a little bit. Stopped doing it. It's too risky. I don't do it. I don't do it anymore. Yeah, I would never take music from a popular source. It's not a good idea to take any. But yeah, you got to be your own musician. That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've talked to this. So there's some big YouTubers out there that use the YouTube music or whatever, the creator studio music. And I brought it up to them. I'm like, they're like, oh no, don't worry about it. This is free. This is free stuff. I'm like, you never know. Like in the future, maybe it's free right now. They say it is, but maybe in the future, some copyright judgment might come down. Then bam, your channel's gone.
Well, royalty free and free are two different things.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't like to take the risk.
I don't know if you guys watched the Joe Rogan show, but I tune in from time to time. You know, obviously, what's good about that show is they have a varied, you know, range of people. The different, like I don't go for the ultimate fighting stuff. I like, you know, well, actually, that's how I got introduced to Graham Hancock. He was an interesting writer, but anyways.
Yeah, I met him one time.
Oh yeah, for real, that's awesome. But Joe Rogan had Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins on. And I didn't watch the whole like 3 hours or whatever, but at one point Billy Corgan was like, yeah, when I was getting signed back in the 90s, like he was 23 and they were like, yeah, like the contract, it literally said, and this contract is valid for eternity in this universe and any other universe not yet discovered. Like it actually said that on the contract.
Wow, that's crazy.
Sign that.
It's actually kind of common, you know, because I went to law school and stuff, and contracts, because especially intellectual property rights and stuff, because there are worlds, like for example, the internet. That's a whole universe where intellectual property rights and money exchanges, that was unforeseen by the music industry in, say, the 1930s, you know? Yeah. So they have to include that. But he also had a story about like seeing a shapeshifter on the Rogan podcast. He said he was at, he said he was in like a hotel or before a show or something like that. And he turned around, this person had shapeshifted. And Joe Rogan's like, can you tell us any more? And he's like, nah, I can't, you know.
Are you kidding me? Well, Billy Corgan said that?
Billy Corgan said that.
Yeah, Billy Corgan said he saw a shapeshifter.
He looks like the sort of guy that would have those sorts of experiences. Like the bald head, he's a Pisces, so he's like water sign. He's existing in the ocean there. So, yeah, he's going to pick up on that stuff, I think. Yeah.
Well, Billy said he was real. And I didn't really believe in shapeshifters until possibly his story, but he said he's going to write the full account in his book.
Right.
And that reminds me of me.
That's right, yeah.
Because I had a demonic encounter. I've never told the full story. I'm going to write it in a book. See, Billy's not writing in a book for money. He's writing it in a book, I think, because he considers it an important event, that he doesn't want the entirety of the telling of the event to be a clickbait recommended on YouTube video. If it happened to him and it's real, he wants to write it down.
Right. Yeah.
And I understand the importance when he writes something down. It's a little more legitimate than a video.
No, that's
true.
I've never seen a shapeshifter. I've luckily never been bothered by demons. I don't know. Have you, Brandon?
Yeah.
Oh, you have? Oh, boy.
Yeah. I mean, I've told my Ouija board story on, I think, was it Mysterious Alice podcast number 2 or 3? I think it might have been the third one, maybe, or second. Anyway, check out that. And I go into the full account. And And yeah, and beyond that, and I actually mentioned the very few times that I have been encountered entities, let's just say, energies or something, for sure. John, I think, has like this extreme degree of maybe it's a heightened sensitivity, maybe it's a combination of all being on the certain part of land, but I mean, being bothered every day for, what was it, 6 months, John?
Yeah, 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, nothing compares to that. I mean, I have nothing compared to that at all. But I have had some crazy experiences for sure, and totally sober too, by the way, not on mushrooms or on. I mean, those are different. Those don't count. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
No, I've never. Luckily, I don't. I mean, I don't want to attract any of that stuff into my life, but I'm interested in it. But I mean, I've seen weird things in the sky. I've seen UFOs a few times in my life with my friend. I talk about this on my YouTube channel already, so most of my stories are few and far in between, and I've already told them, but I'm summarizing. But yeah, I've seen weird, not flying saucers or anything like that. Mm-hmm. There's not too much to say. I mean, I saw something that looked like a pattern of just like an energy flow, kind of just like doing this sort of figure eight, kind of working its way like a worm in a curve, not a perfect curve, just this winding curve through the sky, beneath the clouds. It was probably only 200 or 250 meters up. My friend and I, we both saw this. Was May 26th, 10:45 p.m., 2014, standing in Etobicoke on the west side of Toronto, looking up at the clear night sky. And so it was like 35 seconds we got to watch this thing. It was
interesting.
It was an interesting energy pattern. It didn't look entirely physical. And I don't know if it was making a sound like kind of like chug, 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 kind of just like, but clearly not moving like a plane, because at that very slow speed, no plane could do that unless it was a helicopter. I don't know how big it was, maybe the size of a car, but so nothing, nothing like that. But yeah, I've never, I haven't done too much UFO research. I haven't, sometimes you just see something, but I don't know. But with that friend of mine, my friend Will, when I've been with him, we've seen weird things on more than one occasion. I think maybe when you're with someone, you're more susceptible to see things. We once were in this valley, also in Etobicoke at night, and just kind of hanging out there in the darkness, and everything lit up all of a sudden. It was only 2 seconds. It was like everything lit up, but there was no colors at all. We call it the gray flash, because there were no color, but just different intensities of gray. Everything and nothing, no light shining down, but everything lighting up from the inside of everything. So the earth was lighting up from within the earth. The trees were lighting up from within the trees. Kind of like when you look at embers in the fire and you see the hot embers sort of changing in intensity, but it was all, so some things you could differentiate the trees from the ground based on that differing gray. It was just different kinds of gray, but it was such a short event. It passed. We both saw that. We were both like, what was that?
So there was no source of light. It just
nothing
changed.
Shining down. It was just like it had the sensation of something passing by, but there was no sensation of something being overhead. It was more like that flare up was a passing phenomenon. We didn't see it go off anywhere. It was gone. It's like, back to normal now.
Yeah, searching for UFOs, you just look at the sky. There's not really much strategy. But a couple weeks ago, I was looking up at the sky, and I saw a flash of light, and it was local because it only lit up my street block, and it lit up everything, and it had the look to it as a fluorescent light, and it was in the sky above the neighbor's trees, but I happened to be behind my tree, so I couldn't get a full view. I saw probably 30% of it. I quickly walked around the tree and nothing, and it made no sound. It almost looked like one of those flash fireworks, but it made no sound. So I don't know if my neighbor shot up a flash firework that happens to have no sound at the right time when I happen to be there. Very unusual. So I investigated it for a couple days, and I have no idea what it was. No idea.
Yeah,
But I have seen a couple UFOs in the 90s.
Oh,
But ever since then, I haven't seen any.
John has a good video, I think, where you're coming home from with your mom in the car, and you went on the back and saw the sun.
That was like in the 90s, mid to late 90s. Yeah, and I saw an orange. It started like a white star, and then it turned orange, and then it got big, and it almost turned brown, and then it dropped tiny lights out of it. And then a second one did the same thing. And I watched it with binoculars. If I owned a camera at the time, it would have been disposable. And a disposable camera can't pick up a dot in the sky. So I couldn't film it or take a picture or anything.
Yeah,
but
that sounds like something I saw. But you say there was something orb-like in the sky, and then at one point there was more than one of them, or something smaller.
Yeah. The white light turned orange. When it got bigger, it turned brown.
Okay.
And then it kind of pulsated, and it dropped tiny little beaded lights out of it.
Okay.
And then one of these lights flew over my house, and it was an airplane. Whoa. So that tells me, first of all, the thing dropped like 15 of them. That tells me it might be a military craft dropping 15 airplanes, but that doesn't exist. So I don't know what it was to this day. I don't know.
Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
I think it might have been a military event. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
This was in the 90s, before small drones existed. The smallest drones were pretty huge back then.
It's true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I just have one experience, I guess. I was coming out of work, and I do have a witness with me. I did have a witness with me. I was coming out of work, and it was in the parking lot. And it was late, and we were just closing down. And me and this girl were walking back to our cars, and I was walking to my car. And I looked up in the sky, and right above the power lines, I noticed, you know how, oh, geez, it's hard to explain. When something's there, but it wasn't making any noise. This thing it looked like gyrocopter, but like invisible, but invisible, but you could see the outline of it, almost like, and I hate to compare things to pop culture or whatever, but this is the best way to do it. It's like Wonder Woman had an invisible plane that she would get in. And I wasn't into Wonder Woman at this point or anything like that. So it's the way to explain it. It had like these translucent colors, like pearl, the color pearl that you add to make funky colors and stuff. Anyway, and I saw this thing, and it was just like a little, you know what a gyrocopter is, do you? It's just like a tiny gyrocopter. It's like a little helicopter. It's like a tiny one person, like little, it's the more I looked at it, and I pointed, and I said, "Can you see that thing right there?" And she's like, "What? Oh my God, what is that?" And at that point, and I could look in, and I saw inside there was some mask. Some guy had something had a mask on.
Whoa.
And it had a mask on, and it turned and looked like almost a Darth Vader mask, but it's obviously like a jet mask, for oxygen or whatever. And it looked at me, and as soon as I looked at it, I waved. I'm looking at it. I mean, it's only 30 feet up or something, right above the power lines, however long. And as soon as I did that, and it saw me, it just went like this, and it went like, I don't know, like 1,000 miles per hour, if not more, booted towards the sun, the setting sun. And as I turned to look at it, I couldn't, because I was blinded by the sun, and it just disappeared.
Whoa, that's nuts.
That was pretty cool. I don't know what that is. I asked Linda Moulton Howe about it, and now she's like a famous UFO researcher or reporter or whatever you want, journalist or whatever you want to call it. Very well known. And she said it might be these dragonfly drones, they're called, but they don't look like these. This thing was camouflage, like with, I'm talking like some kind of alloy, translucent. It was invisible, but you could make out the outline. That's the only way I can put it. It's really hard to explain.
The person inside, did it look like a man, like a human?
Couldn't. That's the thing that's freaky. I couldn't tell. All I could see was the mask and like the nozzles coming out of the mask, and it wasn't any color. You know,
the right size of a human head, like, or some
about that size. But I was,
right.
You know, I couldn't make that big of a judgment. But yeah, about that regular head. That's a good question. Yep.
Wow.
So what did it sound like?
There was no sound. There was absolutely no sound.
Whoa.
There was no sound. That was the freakiest thing. I'm like, there's some. What? There's no sound. It was silent.
So you just saw the thing's head, like the body was obstructed by the invisible outer?
No, the whole thing was everything was invisible pretty much. There was just, you could just see the outline. I have to like find a photo of, like, remember when you did that invisible video where you run across the wall and the cloak, that, you know, it almost had that. It almost looked like that effect. Okay. It had that refraction effect. And where it's like, it looks invisible, but it's not. You can see clearly the outline, okay? And so the person in it wasn't like a real it wasn't even a person. It was just, all I could see was the outline of a mask, but it turned when I waved. It was crazy.
That's nuts. It knew you were there.
I don't know. I have no idea, but it was silent. That's the thing. Like, I had to look up and find it, and then I thought it was crazy, and I was like, hey, do you see that? Oh yeah, what is that? And I just waved. And I mean, and just the craziest thing is it took off at such a speed, such a speed. And apparently these dragonfly drones do go near like power lines, because that's how they, I guess, gain up their magnetism or whatever they use to propel themselves. But it's very interesting. I don't think they're aliens. It might be, it might not be, but I think it's like some kind of dark black high technology project that we're working on, perhaps. I mean, they're so far advanced, and that's, you don't have to believe in UFOs. I mean, and that's an unidentified object. You know, most of them I think are military. I think most of them, you know, military. So.
Yeah, no, I have no issue with that. Most of them could be military. There's so much unaccounted for money, or even if it is accounted for, who knows what the end product looks like. Yeah, it's top secret. or covert. What is the difference between, I forgot, I was reading about this, like there's a difference between top secret and covert, or I forget what the terminology is. Like one is like, it's like one is a lower level, a more serious, like one is not even acknowledged at all. I think they call it like black. Black is just like not acknowledged.
Covert is not acknowledged, yeah.
What's the terminology? What is it?
I mean, I've read a book called Covert Wars,
right?
And it's all about like the proxy wars, like the CIA in the U.S. that we're funding in Latin America and Central and Latin America and Africa and all around the world, basically East Timor, places like that. So that would be, you know, those projects would be classified under, you know, those were called whatever, not black projects,
clandestine, and then covert.
Covert, that's it. Yeah.
Covert, yeah.
I'm not sure. Actually, I'm not 100% on that. It was just
something I was reading from Soviet times. They were like, I was reading this good book. Let me get it here. It's called. It's kind of it's 10 years old, but I don't know if you guys can see. It's like The Dead Hand. Sorry, it's got the sticker still on it. The Untold Story of the Cold War Arms Race and Its Dangerous Legacy by David E. Hoffman. I'm like halfway through this book, but yeah, it's fascinating. It's like all the history of all the stuff leading up to the end of the Cold War, and that's how I got this clandestine covert thing in my head. There's no particular reason I introduced that book, but it's a good read. It's like it's a deep story. It's more just like you learn all the stuff that was going on, and how it's about the tension that led up to the, you know, it's the 1980s, and just how tense both sides were. They were on a hair trigger, like ready to blow us up, blow us.
Well, the world almost really ended in Cuba. I mean, the Cuban Missile Crisis was no joke. And they came out, what was it, the 40th anniversary of it? And I think it was McNamara that was like, yeah, it was, if it wasn't for like one decision, like they were ready. There were multiple times where we were almost, supposedly we're at nuclear war, according to the record,
Yeah.
you know, and that's really scary, you know? So yeah, I mean, there are real issues to look at, and then there are distractions from like Corey Good and the likes of people like that want you to look at, oh, the secret space program. Well, you know what? Like, John's dad's probably working on some secret stuff. Those satellites, I know William Ramsey's father worked on satellites, military grade. He couldn't talk about it. And when he worked on parts of those satellites, he didn't know what it was being used for, but they were being used for. And a lot of those launch surveillance, look above and below. I mean, energy, like weapon, like crazy stuff. And that's the real stuff. That's the real. And the thing is, like, that's why you need to be at war. The country's been at war ever since World War II, pretty much. It's been a war economy. The money that goes into the research and development, and that's a very risky thing, you know, research and development. So you get to basically pay for that for the big corporations. And you know, NASA and everything like that. They make the discoveries.
Northrop Grumman, Lockheed.
Northrop Grumman is right in Santa Barbara, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I read a fascinating book by Sean McFate. He was a former government. I don't know. He's like an elite like academic. It's weird. He was like this academic guy, but then he got put in charge of this huge military contractor in Africa, like in Burundi or something like that, to like, you know, basically like these people, you probably know, they make private armies. Sometimes they actually outfit the soldiers. Sometimes they just do service operations. It's a bit of a gray area.
Yeah.
He's a guy from lots of experience. He also worked in Liberia, building up the Liberian army after the Civil War ended, when that country was complete shit, and no one would trust the military. But he was in there, and it's like a huge business, as you know. It's like the stuff that happened in Iraq, like we know about that, but it's a worldwide business. And but he was in a good position to look at the whole world. And like you were saying, after World War II, it didn't end. The fighting kept continuing, and so his theory is that we're living in a neo-medieval world, and that the exception to the rule was the last 400 years from 1648 to World War II, when there was an international system, because the 30 years war ended in 1648. Europe had been totally destroyed by mercenaries. Because, you know, as long as you can pay someone to fight, the war can keep going. It doesn't matter if your country's blood dry, you'll pay someone else.
Yeah, Napoleon, yeah.
And he's saying, well, basically, because World War II, you know, Britain was broke, all the, you know, colonial powers were broke, and America wasn't broke, but it was tied into this system. So, but now the war is back to the medieval mode. It's back to fracturing national authority. You see this all over the world. National governments are less powerful, and smaller actors rise up, and they have their own armies, and they keep it all going. But anyways, so.
Well, that's a good point. And if you go, a really good book on this, a really good historian on this, and documents it in excruciating detail, is one of my ex-teachers and mentors, Noam Chomsky. He's known for his linguistics and philosophy, but he really does a good job as a historian. You look at the early national security documents, George Tenet and people like that, they call it the Grand Area, okay? And they had like pockets of places that weren't under this international control, these, you know, the United States control, basically. Because after World War II, as you point out, we were the wealthiest country by a long shot, because we didn't get into World War II to the end.
Yeah, that's right.
Pretty much in Europe. I mean, the Russians were decimated. The Germans were decimated. The Marshall Plan got put into place, which made America rich. And they learned that you could, you know, profit from destroying countries and rebuilding them. And so there were a few countries and places that were out of the reach of the empire. And they called it the threat of a good example. They don't want the threat of a good example. And so that's why Cuba, one of the reasons why Cuba was like so targeted because, you know, they had like, you know, a functioning healthcare system and things like this.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Noam Chomsky.
Sorry to talk about politics.
No.
John is so angry right now.
Well, I don't do politics too much, you know.
I know. I mean,
no, you're far more specialized. That's pretty cool. I'm go off on all these other topics.
Well, you're talking about the Cuban Missile Crisis. The only story I know is JFK asked his assistant to buy like 500 boxes of Cuban cigars before he signed the papers, so he could have a lifetime supply of Cuban cigars legally.
Of course.
No, it's I've never been to Cuba. I've been to Guatemala, Costa Rica. I lived in Peru for about 3.5 months in 2000.
Oh wow, really?
I volunteered there for construction, and I've talked about international volunteering and how it's kind of it's a bit of a sham. But anyways, and you know, basically when I was in my mid-20s, I was lucky to have the money, and so I traveled a lot. And Latin America is one of the places I spent some time in. Colombia too. I'm going to be putting a video out soon, hiking to the lost city in the jungle of northern Colombia. That's from years ago, but you know, I got into my YouTube channel only about a year and a half ago, so I have all this old footage. So I put some of it together. Like
awesome.
But yeah, like Peru, Colombia, and these are poor places, but there's some. It's a different society. I mean, I know there's socialism has been more embraced in that part of the world to different degrees. Well, look at Brazil. They just elected Bolsonaro. But
well, the biggest one was Evo Morales of Bolivia, who was the first indigenous president, democratically elected president ever. In the history of the world, which is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's
like
a complicated situation. It's very divided. There's a lot of divisions in Latin America.
Like, for sure.
Between them,
but you know, like they'll say, like people in America ask Noam Chomsky, you know, I heard your information. Now, what do I do?
Right.
And then, but when he speaks in Latin America, people tell him what they're doing. You know, rather than us in America, we're like, what do we do? We don't know how to, you know, get involved, or what do we do? How do we start? Latin America, they're doing it. You know, because they have no choice. You know, it's like your family is starving. Like, what are you gonna do? You know, you're gonna do something about it. And I mean, I mean, the Vatican just beatified Archbishop Romero, and Archbishop Romero, along with I think it was 6 other or 5 other, someone can correct me, archbishops were assassinated by the CIA for helping the poor and for helping, you know, giving out, regardless of religion. Giving out.
I don't know if I trust the Vatican. Those guys are a little.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of power there for sure.
Yeah, no. I was more to the liberal when I was 20 and doing all this volunteering and help the world. You know, British Empire bad. You know, but then as I got a bit older, I started to realize, these countries have a lot of problems, and I'm pretty sure we're not oppressing them. And there's just differences in the world. So, but you know, different. Like most of my family is liberal. I grew up. You know, this is a liberal city, and but you know,
it is.
Times are a bit changing. So, but one thing I can always agree on is the anti-war thing, and that's one thing I totally agree that there's fake conservatives that have used Americans and honest, well-meaning people, get them to believe in these things, and get into all this war economy that we don't need. It's not making the world a better place. But one of the cool things that I can tie this into, which brings us back to the occult and that sort of stuff, is Peru is a fascinating place for all of the. And you mentioned that you met Graham Hancock, and I was meaning to ask you about this. Graham Hancock has talked about Peru. He's talked about, you know, ancient Egypt.
Ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca. I had a chance to do ayahuasca when I was in Peru, and it tastes awful.
What can I ask you if it was that Blue Morpho?
I don't know exactly what it was, but I went to a ceremony, and the shaman he prepared it for us, and I don't know what he
Okay.
brews it, and it's like this. Ayahuasca is the coffee root, and then it has to be brewed with
Vine.
certain other vines in a certain way, and that releases the DMT. One or the other ingredients wouldn't do it, and it tastes awful. It tastes like car grease or battery acid. I don't know, but it makes you vomit. And I don't. Maybe you guys already know the story. I'm just saying for anyone else that doesn't know. I've never done DMT. I've never smoked it or anything. Maybe kids do that these days. I'm too old for that. I'm 32. So, but anyways, nothing much happened to me. It was a big disappointment. The other people in the ceremony had crazy experiences. Some people were even crying. All of us vomit though. But I'll tell you, I felt pretty good the next day. I felt pretty rejuvenated, and I don't think I communicated with any spirits though. But that's what the shaman supposedly does. He was an interesting dude. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, my friend, my roommate Nick.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to Nick out there. He went to Peru for a week straight of ayahuasca ceremonies, night and day and night, night and day and night, and and he came out different for sure. Yeah. And he's like, I'm like, hey,
I only did it once, but yeah, people go through it 5-6 times.
He did a whole week, but there were, like, to the place's credit, there were veterans there that were completely healed. There were heroin addicts that were completely healed. There were rape victims that were completely healed and changed. It was a beautiful thing, I guess, but you got to be right about it. But here's the creepy part about it. Months in advance, you have to, like, purge yourself of, like, toxins and don't take medicines, don't even take caffeine,
alcohol,
right, all that stuff. So it was a pamphlet, and I was curious, so I read the pamphlet, and at one part it was like, spirits that will appear to you, and I was like, huh? Like, there's gonna be, like, how do they know a spirit is gonna appear to you? And it's like, and they had these different names of the spirits that appear to you, and one is a yellow anaconda. I forget the name of it, but it's like, it describes it, and he's like, and then later I asked him about it. He's like, yeah, you just call if you're having a tough time, you call on this one, or and you've done it. So the ikarus, which are the songs of the shaman makes with, like, while he's blowing this tobacco smoke and stuff. I don't know, man, how I feel about this. Graham Hancock says of DMT world that there's that he was thrashing around and he wanted to get out, but he couldn't get out. And this guy Ping Trip made a really, actually, it's funny, but it's pretty spooky and true. It's called Meet the Alien. It starts off with a Terrence McKenna quote, and it starts in the Joe Rogan. Rogan's talking about DMT, but he's interviewing Graham Hancock and all these different people, and they're just basically saying how they saw demons. They saw people, this thing eating their soul and running off with their light. And then, of course, you have Alex Jones. He cuts in Alex Jones saying it's Baphomet. And people have experiences of them seeing the goat man of light, of multicolors and stuff. It's fascinating. So I haven't experienced myself, so I don't know. But I'm just going on what I find as the pattern or the common denominator of pretty much every story.
Yeah, people will see these spirits, like they're out there. I only prepared for 5 days. I didn't prepare for like 2 weeks or anything like that. I did do some mental preparation, maybe not more than I could have. I feel like when I was 25 when I did it, I'm 32 now. There wasn't anything going on in my life that I needed ayahuasca to give me an answer at that time. But other people who've been through a lot of stress, like you said, veterans. Or this guy I got to know, he was from Pittsburgh, but he lived in Washington, and he worked at this financial company for many years in his 20s, and really stressed out and had to eat a lot of shit, figuratively speaking, and that really helped him. Like, he got a lot out from that experience. So I saw it help people, and they were seeing all sorts of stuff. They were describing, like, the floor giving way to a spiral staircase, Indian women with skulls. In front of them. Just it wasn't my time to experience that. But the other thing you can do in Peru is the San Pedro cactus. That's also legal there.
Right.
And thankfully, because I've never done too many psychedelics. I mean, I've done shrooms and LSD a few times and marijuana, but nothing too crazy. But so when I tried San Pedro, that was a very positive experience. And that was a blessed day. It was a sunny day in Cusco, Peru. 2,300 meters. That's where I was living. And that's where the volunteer project. That's where our home base was. So I lived in Cusco for about 12 weeks. Beautiful, but cloudy. You know, it's up in the mountains. But on that day, it was sunny, and so great day to do San Pedro. Basically, we walked up the mountain as it was starting to affect us, and you got to gulp down this powder with water. It tastes like mud. It doesn't taste so great, and it might make you a little nauseous, but not. You know, I didn't have any issues, and just they say you're supposed to do it in the day, not at night. They say ayahuasca's for the night, San Pedro's for the day. And I'm just glad I had that experience because I was just happy for the company I had, the scenery. We were by Sacsayhuaman. You know that archaeological site, Sacsayhuaman?
Which one is that? That's the is that like
enormous stones, like overlooking?
Right, that are way high up, miles up in the. Yeah.
They are not on right angles. They are on all sorts of different angles. They fit right together. You could not. I mean, there's lots of architectural examples of this, but this has got to be one of the biggest examples in the world.
Yeah. It's way the elevation is like ridiculous.
Probably what was a much larger structure, and that's all that remains. They have no explanation for how that was built. They have no. Right. They're the typical rolling stones on logs up. Are you kidding me? Like what you can see is 18 feet of the rock. What's underneath the grass probably goes down another like 15, 20 feet.
Oh wow.
These are enormous stones. But anyways, having the San Pedro on the hilltop there, and it wasn't just a nice scenery. It was like there was a lesson there, and there were some annoying people with me that I found annoying, and they were tagging along with me and my trio. And so I had sort of a negative vibe. And San Pedro taught me to be more positive, let go of all that negativity. And I was able to look at those people like, I've never done what's it called, ecstasy. I've never done that.
Right.
People speak of a similar thing where you become like this
empathetic,
like love, but like empathetic. The thing is, it didn't go away the next feeling. It was like a positive buzz lasting for a week, 2 weeks later. It's like, wow. I was like, so I'm glad I had that after not anything from ayahuasca. But Sacsayhuaman, that's Graham Hancock would talk about that. For sure. You said you got a chance to meet Graham Hancock?
Before I even knew who he was, really. Getting a bit of an echo, but...
Oh, no, it sounds fine.
No, I just met him very briefly. I've maybe talked about... I don't know if I talked about this before. I think on a podcast, on the Cruising with Steak podcast, I talked about it. There's so many shows out there. But yeah, it was just my friend, he we went to Burning Man. Go to Burning Man almost every year. He goes to Burning Man every single year. But this year he was working for Burning Man, and he was taking people from Reno, Nevada, which is the closest city to Burning Man, and busing them, basically giving them rides to Burning Man, and then leaving. And then on one trip, he was like, he's like, Brandon, do you want to come with me? You know, and and I did. Because I wanted like a real sandwich, you know what I mean? Like I had a Subway sandwich, and it was the best thing in the world. Because out there, you're in the desert. I mean, there's great food. Don't get me wrong, but it was like, it's not whatever. So yes, I went with him, and we picked up these people in Reno, Nevada. And there was this one guy, British guy, sat right up front, short dude, and he was all very interesting, and he was just talking about he was there to meet his wife and all this stuff and whatever. I didn't think anything of it. This is back in 2007. And then, so I wasn't into this stuff at all. Like the occult, not really. I mean, and, or even paranormal research or alternative history or whatever you want, archaeology. And so, so we dropped him off. And then, I saw him on I think the Joe Rogan podcast and Duncan Trussell podcast. And,
I saw him was the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah, so I saw like a lecture of his here and there, like things here and there, but not much. But then he kind of became pretty popular amongst my friends and stuff. So my friend Ethan was like, remember that British guy that we took to Burning Man? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you know, that was Graham Hancock. I'm like, it was, wasn't it? Oh my God. That's crazy. Right. That's right. And because he met his wife, and she was, it was his wife and everything. So it was really interesting. but it wasn't.
His wife
I
was
wish I knew. You know,
he traveled with you guys too?
Oh, no. We just brought him there, and he just
okay.
walked off. Yeah. I wish if I knew, I would have been like.
Wife is some like he married outside his culture. He married someone from like
India
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess he has kids, but I've never seen. But I guess he lives in England. Yeah.
England and LA. Yeah.
And LA. Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's part time. His
nice.
Kids live in LA, I guess.
That's a nice life. Yeah. Yeah.
No, he has a good life for sure.
Yeah,
and funny enough, David Wilcock did interview Graham Hancock.
Yeah, that's right. I think I saw that. Yeah.
And Graham Hancock heard about David Wilcock, in the whole trademark issue and how he was calling he called Guy a Luciferian in his resignation letter and all this stuff.
Really?
Because Cosmic Disclosure, they got fired, David Wilcock and Corey Good, and
okay.
And so now he's like, you didn't fire me, I quit.
Right.
And he sent his resignation letter.
Right.
But anyway, Graham Hancock's like, who? Wait, this guy's calling me a Luciferian? Because in the letter he calls Graham Hancock a Luciferian.
Oh, really?
He's like, because he talks about the Gnostics and pagan cultures and stuff like that. Because he's an archaeologist, dude. You know what I mean?
But, an ethnologist, a journalist, a writer.
He was an economist. He was a journalist for The Economist, and then he got started on the Ark of the Covenant. He wanted to check out the Ark of the Covenant.
I have the sign and the seal. I haven't started reading. I haven't though.
All right, I won't spoil it, but
bookstores,
it's cool.
But I've been meaning to get into it. I know how he feels about it because I've seen Graham Hancock talk for hours and hours in videos. I've been meaning to get into his books, but I know he got. The mainstream criticized him, but it doesn't,
But they apologized to him too.
Yeah. Right.
They had you saw. I don't know if you saw Randall Carlson with Michael Shermer.
I've watched Randall Carlson on Joe Rogan. Yeah, like 2 or 3 of.
Yeah, they had Rogan and Michael Shermer on one side. And it wasn't really that fair, but Rogan, Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson, who's like a geologist.
Right.
And then Shermer, who was the skeptic, he really wrote a violent, vitriolic review of Hancock's latest book, which is not Fingerprints of the Is it Fingerprints or Footprints of the Gods? It's the sequel to Fingerprints of the Gods. He tore it apart as like pseudoscience and all this stuff. And Graham Hancock went after him in that show. They went head to head. And Shermer ended up apologizing and stuff, and like phoned a friend. So it was actually pretty good. Like Graham, he's becoming more mainstream, I guess. I don't know. I don't believe everything that he says.
Yeah, no, I don't believe everything. It's interesting. He has some good questions. That's for sure. But,
I didn't like his fiction that much. I mean, I did. I checked. Have you read War God?
No, I'm aware of it. Yeah, I didn't read it though. Yeah,
it's about the demonic overtaking leaders and leadership, and like the conquistadors. Being like he thought it was a vision of Saint Michael, and it wasn't Saint Michael. This was like a demonic war god that wanted blood. You know. Anyway, sorry, John. We got so off topic. Back to Mysterialis here. Let's go. Talk about.
I've never taken shamanistic drugs, but if you take it supposedly the right way, you can leave your body. Have you ever had any out-of-body experiences, or even
when I did Salvia divinorum,
a dreamlike experience?
Legal in Canada. Salvia divinorum is a herb, and I don't think you can buy it in Canada anymore, but like 10 years ago, you could buy it in certain stores, and I was curious, and I bought it. And it doesn't affect you the same as you do it on multiple occasions, but basically it messes with your motor skills, and your sense of gravity goes out. And but the first time I did it, that's probably the only time I've ever really felt like out of this reality. Like I said, I've done LSD 2 or 3 times. And ayahuasca once, shrooms, but never, you might see things with those other drugs a little bit, but nothing like this ever happened. This time with salvia only lasted a few minutes, but I felt like I was straddling what I would call the underside of reality. And maybe reality is much deeper than that, but it felt physically to me. I didn't remember who I was. I thought I was in the hospital on the verge of death, and that my friend who was with me, I was in a park at night, and apparently I was doing somersaults on my neck. So this is, kids, don't do this. I mean, or if you're doing it, if it's legal, be very careful. People have fallen off balconies doing this. People have died, not from the thing itself, but from, it's like, don't be in your car, or just like, you have to be in a safe place. Trust me, 2 minutes later, you'll feel normal. But for those 2 minutes, 3 minutes, I felt like reality were these layers, and I was kind of sucked and pushed and pulled and kind of straddling this like it was like, in a physical sense, like it was under the grass, and in a deeper metaphysical sense, like I can't describe. And
Wow.
you feel unpleasant. It's not a pleasant thing. I know apparently some Central Americans have used salvia in rituals. I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm not surprised that it got made illegal. It's not even a very pleasant thing to do. I wouldn't even have any.
I did Google
Yeah.
people taking salvia. There are YouTube videos, and you can watch them with their friend to make sure they don't do something crazy.
Good idea, yeah.
And I don't know. They describe, it's hard to even watch those videos.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't recommend taking that.
No,
the guy Jared Loeffner took that.
Yeah.
And then he did what he did. Now he's in prison. So, specifically, Jared Loeffner had like an altar in his backyard, and he had 3 candles, and he had a fake skull, and he had an orange, and he was doing some type of spirit communication with the help of salvia. I don't recommend it. I do not recommend it. It's pretty freaky stuff.
Wow.
But have you ever heard that?
No, I never heard about. No, I did not.
Because nobody researches it, and I didn't want to make a video on it because it's such a sensitive subject. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the situation is with salvia these days, but yeah, probably illegal.
Well, it's illegal in most states.
Yeah.
It's actually legal where I live.
Oh, really? Is it?
I'm not
really?
gonna buy it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to buy it.
Yeah, no. Well, yeah, there's no need. The thing is, like, doing it again, it won't even feel the same way. It's like
So it's like a one-time thing, and then it's different for the second time.
Twice, like I smoked it on 10 or 11 times, and by the 3rd or 4th time, it's like nothing's happening anymore. It's just like you feel very unpleasant. But no more hallucinations, nothing. Just sitting in your chair feeling very unpleasant for a few minutes. But yeah, maybe if I did it again after years. But yeah, that's Salvia divinorum. That's the occult. But Brandon was mentioning Graham Hancock and Gnosticism, and that's an interesting. I don't know. I haven't read enough about Gnosticism, John or Brandon. I don't know if you guys have read more about it, but it's an interesting story. Like, and I made a video talking about Gnosticism, and more knowledgeable people, they said, "Oh, you haven't researched this enough." There's different types of Gnosticism, but this idea that the serpent was the good guy. What do you guys think of that? That's a basic idea that they challenge. I don't know what to think, honestly. I could go either way. What do you guys think?
That's the big mistake of biblical scholarship and exegesis of biblical scholarship. That goes back even to the Judaic scholarship and of the Torah and the Talmud. It's a misreading. It's a perversion. It's an inversion of the actual true story. I mean, it gets into, and talk about a cult, Gnosticism and Gnostics. I mean, it's just easily refuted in so many ways. Crowley tried to bring it back in a way, and look at what happened to him. Whatever. Whatever you think about him, it doesn't matter. But he died, the way he did. I'll just put it like that. this is a guy that's trying to. You look at the Gnostic Gospels. I've had a look at the Gnostic Gospels, for example.
Right.
And
right.
Gnostic just meant know it all. They were known as the know it alls.
Yeah,
you know, they were these
direct knowledge with God. Yeah.
Right. It was kind of like a pejorative term, because these people were kind of on the outskirts. Like in early Christianity, these people were kind of not. They were like, no, okay, yeah, like, we all are part of God, but there is something called God that also is not you, or something. There were some very technical doctrinal differences, but that are very important. And so you also had like these other cults that were doing their own thing, and they were teaching that the serpent was the wise one. And a lot of that comes from the reframing, revisionist history of Helena Blavatsky and people like that, and that Theosophists. It is true that the serpent is a sacred symbol throughout all cultures, and and represents wisdom in a lot of those cultures.
There's a positive snake and a negative snake, positive serpent and a negative serpent, and people mix them up all the time.
Okay.
Right.
We have Quetzalcoatl was definitely a serpent god of South America. And but even in the Bible, there's a positive reference to serpents and a negative reference.
That's true.
Moses lifted the brass serpent,
right,
and it healed those that were bitten by the snakes.
I forgot about that. Really?
So that's a positive representation of a serpent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like also from like not with serpents, but like in Judah in the Old Testament and in Israel, like they're listening to wise men who like are prophets all the time. Like, should I go to battle here? And it's like, aren't you not supposed to be doing that? Like, aren't you not supposed to be like these guys are clearly, they have some relationship with God, maybe spirits, I don't know, but so it's kind of like I don't know how that matches with the New Testament, but yeah, the spirits and the serpents. I don't know. It's an interesting. I haven't researched.
Well, it's an interesting take. Like there's a whole school of thought, and then you have this guy that's trying to revise the Gnostic Gospels, and his name is John Lamb Lash. And you probably heard of the Archons.
Right. Yeah.
He's famous for like bringing that back, and he's like, he's basically a white supremacist. He tried to start his own. Yeah, it's a cult. It becomes a cult at some point. These ideologies become cults, and like he's trying to start his own party, the Kalika War Party, and he interprets things the way in which I would put it this way: the way in which Zechariah Sitchin interpreted in the Sumerian myths, not even knowing the language, making up stuff that he admitted to, is the way that John Lamb Lash looks at the Gnostic Gospels. But everybody there's a lot of people that follow him and like believe everything he says, and that everybody has archontic features of them, and it's just silly. It gets really silly.
That's fascinating. There's a lot of cults. Yeah, there's a lot of cults today.
Well, people are searching for meaning and spirit. They want meaning. They want spiritual fulfillment of some way. But the truth is hard. The truth is hard, and a lie is easy. And a lot of people want the easy way out. You know what I mean?
I like the way you put that there. I like the way you put that.
You know what? John says the same thing, right? Yeah. So it's
not everything is love. Like the New Age movement. And that's, the term that not everyone would agree with New Age, but, it serves some purpose because there's some people actually do use that in. And, when my mother introduced me to more like, I guess what you could call New Age type spirituality, like, or the idea of auras and I believe in aura, but, specific writers like Neil Donald Walsh, Conversations with God.
Yes. Yeah.
That Seth Speaks. That was an older.
Castaneda.
She read Castaneda. I never read him myself, but all these ideas but I don't know. I wouldn't say these writers specifically, but there tends to be this idea like just love, like John Lennon said, or the Beatles. They're like, all you need is love, and there's no tough love. There's no mention of tough love. There's no mention of righteousness. There's
Exactly.
no mention of, like, what were you saying earlier? Like, the life is hard, and I mean,
Oh, the truth is hard sometimes, and the lie is easy.
They never seem to mention demons either. They never seem to mention, by the way, there is evil in the world, and and not all people on earth are good. There's good people. There's
malevolence.
People. There's a lot of bad people. And you may not have to believe the Christian idea that we're all sinners, but you can play around with that idea. I mean, I've traveled, I've lived in different cultures. Most people have good hearts, but I wouldn't say most people are. You know, we have very simple minds. We're not interested in seeking the deep answers. So I don't know if what the Hindus say, that we're going to be trapped to keep coming back or whatever, but I look at sin sort of as a low consciousness vibration on this planet. That's why I have a video describing Earth as hell, not necessarily in the Christian sense, sort of, but sort of. It's a training ground. It's kind of like a schoolhouse. Maybe I can't guarantee that we get to escape from this place, but we sure,
like a purgatory.
Most of us don't deserve it. I mean, maybe I don't. But
well, there's suffering in the world.
Yeah. I personally believe we are in the most hellish experience we'll ever experience right here.
Yeah.
It can be positive, but it's going to be negative, and you have to have the negative just to appreciate the positive. But you're right, a learning place, learning experience. I was going to say something, but I forgot.
We're stuck on Earth, so magic ain't going to get you out of here. You can try all that astral traveling. That's great. But at the end of the day, buddy, you're on Earth, just like the rest of us.
Well, fellas, it's been a pleasure. My girlfriend's going to kill me now because I've been ignoring her. I said only a half hour. So, but thank you so much. It was really good.
Brandon, thanks for
man. We'll be in touch. John, thank you so much.
Thanks, Brandon.
All right. Thanks, buddy. We'll see you. Bye, guys.
Peace.
All right.
Yeah.
No, that's a cool talk, you know.
Glad I got to join in at the
So what kind of camera do you got? Because yours is better than mine.
Logitech HD 1080p. It just says
I got the same one.
Oh yeah? How's the resolution?
But I think yours is higher quality.
I got it about a year and a half ago, something like that. No, it wasn't that long. It was maybe 7 months ago. But I
got mine probably 2 years ago.
Yeah. I wanted to use my Yeti Blue microphone, but whenever I plug that thing in, my audio is gone. So I'm not a very technically knowledgeable person. So
no, the first 100 times I couldn't get it to go either, but I figured it out. It's just playing with the control panel. But I was going to talk about spirits, I guess. I don't know. I was going to talk about Star Wars. You heard about that Star Wars project?
Which I mean, I know. Of course, I know about Star Wars, but which project do you mean?
You know, the lasers on the satellites that shoot down rockets.
Oh, like Ronald Reagan's idea back in the...
Actually, they don't shoot down rockets. They just target the rockets as a target for other missiles to shoot down the missiles or whatever. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like I was watching the X-Files with my dad, and Agent Mulder said something about the Star Wars project from Ronald Reagan's era. And then Scully said, oh, they canceled that project.
Oh, right.
And then my dad laughed because he said they didn't cancel it and he worked on it personally.
That's fascinating. I'm amazed that your dad, that's really cool. I never knew that about you, that your dad got to work for NASA. That's amazing. Doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
So he was working on the Star Wars. Wow.
Yeah, he doesn't work for NASA right now. He contracted for NASA back then, I guess, in the 60s and 70s.
Their budget's gone way down over the years.
Yeah. But he works on secret satellites, and he can't bring his work home. He can't even talk about it because it is classified. He does have a security clearance.
Is that why, like, is your family from the Southwest, or did your dad relocate there to work? Is that why you're? Because I know a lot of people that came to the Southwest to work on like projects like that.
You know, it would have been before I was born, so I don't know where he was living during the 60s and 70s. I don't know. I guess I never asked him, but I assumed he was California.
Oh, okay. Because I know a lot of people who live in California. They come from elsewhere. Like my grandfather was an engineer, and he relocated to California. Geez, I should know this, but I never really got to know the guy. Like he died when I was like eight or nine or 10. But they lived in Palos Verdes, Los Angeles. They had a nice house there, and I don't know what he worked at. He was like a mechanical engineer, but that's what brought his. You know, my dad grew up in, I guess, between Canada and the United States. He spent time in different places. But
My dad's from Sacramento, California, and he graduated UCLA, Los Angeles.
Okay. Oh yeah, my aunt teaches at UCLA. Yeah. But that's pretty cool. It's something about engineering in California, or this like my cousin in California is also an engineer. He works at some sort of like high-tech laboratory. The last I heard, it was something to do with lasers. So funny that we're talking about lasers, but again, he can't talk about most of the stuff. It's a government facility, and that's interesting. The one cool thing apparently I heard about, I can't verify this, but apparently my granddad spoke. He interviewed Wernher von Braun in the after the war, because he was like with the Allies in Germany after the war ended. So Wernher von Braun, yeah. But that's an interesting story.
Huh.
Yeah. No, it's pretty cool. I'm glad. This is the first live stream I've done, so I'm glad it went well.
Yeah, no, it went pretty well. Yeah, I was just gonna say, there's a lot of skeptics out there, and I'd be willing to take a skeptic to the haunted house and say, "Hey, you turn on the device, or you bring your own device."
Yeah, yeah.
It's 100% real. As far as knowing if it's going to set it off, it's up to the spirit.
Oh yeah,
and no way would I ever command a spirit to do something, because that's what magicians do, and they're entering a contract.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the word magicians, because I was meaning to ask you about magic tricks. This kind of ties into what we were saying about, like, you know, white magic probably doesn't exist. So, but I've seen these videos online of like some guy made footage of TV shows from the early 2000s. I think that's when it was, when they had some of these, maybe these guys are still doing these magic tricks now, but it's kind of like the reality TV format where they go out into the street and do magic tricks in front of people. And like I don't remember their names, but there was some guy, like in several instances, you know, they pull countless objects out of a container, like a glass in the bar. And I mean, again, it could be a hoax, but I've seen these tricks where they're just like pulling out one item after another out of this like small, this seemingly limited space, and it doesn't make any sense how these items could fit inside. And
what show is it?
Well, I can send you the link. I mean,
like for example, Chris Angel, when his show first came out, Mind Freak. I was a big fan, but I didn't know he used camera tricks. I thought he had a certain morals and ethics when it came to magic, when he doesn't, because he uses camera tricks. You can see the videos on YouTube, him throwing a frisbee, and then him cutting, and then him catching the frisbee way over here, because he used camera tricks.
Yeah.
Every single time Chris Angel gets underneath a blanket and it disappears and he's gone, it's a camera trick 100% of the time, where they stop the camera, he leaves, they let it fall, and he's over here. So it's, you know, a lot of people have called him a demon magician.
Yeah.
But a demon magician, I don't think he's going to stoop to camera tricks like that. Then again, you know, I think some magicians if they are using demon magic, which would be extremely rare,
Yeah.
they're gonna mix it and intermingle it with regular tricks, so they can easily say it's just a trick. But I don't know what trick you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I looked up the guy Chris Angel you mentioned, and yeah, that's the guy. No, I could believe that he's hoaxing, but I don't know how he does.
That's the guy. Does he pull something out forever?
No, the people pulling out was different people. He walked up. Chris Angel walked up like the side of a building, just like at a complete 90-degree angle. But I don't know. Maybe it was maybe they screwed around with the footage. I don't know.
I think it's possible, because Chris Angel's been busted stopping the camera.
Yeah.
And then continuing it with editing.
Yeah.
In the Magic world, camera editing is really crappy magic, but he does have a live show in Vegas where he can't do camera tricks. So I'm still a fan of his to an extent, and people have called him a demon magician, but I don't think he is. I think he always has someone in on the trick.
Right.
He has a voodoo doll trick where he touches the doll and the guy goes, I think the guy's in on it. He's an actor.
Okay.
So
yeah, it's people are pretty easy to manipulate these days. Yeah. That's what I think is going on.
That being said, I think there potentially could be familiar spirits with the poltergeist ability, but it would have to be one of the rarest magician acts ever.
Right.
Because it's not common. I've seen some what look like levitating objects, but if you don't know how the trick works, you can be fooled, It is possible.
Oh yeah. We can all be fooled. Yeah.
Like Darren Brown does a punch and the guy feels it. I guess the guy is an actor and in on the trick. That's pretty much the only way it could work, right?
Yeah. No, I wouldn't know, but yeah, people want to manipulate other people. And Brandon was speaking about cults, and that's a good point. There's a lot of cults today, and anything can be a cult, really. I mean, one thing I've noticed is that like when you get a group of people together, it's a different energy. Once you get beyond 8 or 9 people, it starts to become like learning languages, for example. It's much better in a smaller group of people, like just less than 7 people, because then the people can be talking to each other, learning from each other. Once you get beyond a certain number, 8 or 9 or 10 people, then one person inevitably takes control, and all the attention's going to them. That's just something I've found. But
yeah, there's basically a flat Earth cult.
Yeah,
there are hollow Earth cults. Yeah. There are blue avian cults, and personally, anyone who ever for 1 second fell for the blue avian cult scam.
Right, yeah.
I guess they're desperate for some guidance. They're desperate for guidance.
Right.
Either spiritual guidance or whatever. Some type of, they need guidance in their lives. So I'm not going to put them down too harshly. But Corey Good, being a leader of any extent, is I don't know, there's some lack of judgment going on when you're picking someone like that guy, because he's 100% in it for money. And Gaia costs money, and I guess he broke off and he's trying to make money by trademarking super space program or secret space program. And then he failed on trying to trademark that. And I don't know. It's like following a guru that's just trying to steal your money. You got to be very cautious, and giving the advice for free.
Some people can't judge character very well. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just judge if you're getting the information for 100% free, and You don't have to buy a bunch of books. You don't have to buy courses. You don't have to pay a subscription fee, a monthly fee.
Yeah, of
Just
course.
stay away from the money system. It's as simple
Yeah.
as that, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, buy my book on the side, or but that's everyone needs to get by. But yeah, you can definitely see when people are trying to get money out of it, it becomes self-serving, and like I just think there's a lot of people that, well, we all fall in. It's easy to fall into an echo chamber or confirmation bias, all this stuff, but some people just don't ever want to leave their echo chambers and listen to what other people have to say. They keep going back to the same thing again and again and again. And like, I don't mean to go back into politics, but just if I may briefly mention something about economics, like the economy is not so great right now, and everyone wants to believe that it's doing so well, but it's a big bubble. And it could pop into a recession anytime, but things are great. Everything is great. Donald Trump is elected, so he said everything's great. He said the stock market is doing well, but yeah, like really smart people I would respect. I don't know if you've ever have you ever watched Styx Hexenhammer 666?
I remember I did the very first David Bowie review of
Right.
Black Star, and
Oh, yeah.
Styx did the second review right after me. My
Oh,
review
yeah.
was such a snafu because
Right.
my mic didn't work.
Oh shoot.
So I recorded like an hour-long review with no audio.
Oh shite. Oh my
And
goodness.
I didn't know he was going to die. I did the review
yeah.
before he died.
Yeah.
And this is why there were so few reviews at the time. So I had to dub over what I thought I said, and it was, I admit, the worst review in the world.
Yeah.
The technical.
Right.
Styx did a review calling it a masterpiece, and his mic worked. I basically said the same thing, and he got a check mark and verified, and his channel took off, whereas mine pretty much has stayed the same. But I know he's an atheist, and that's pretty much the only video I've ever watched of his is that David Bowie Black Star review. Because when I see the titles of his other videos, I already know I'm going to disagree, so I don't necessarily.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, an atheist. Yeah, it's like he wouldn't call himself an atheist, but it's like I tend to think that there's just atheists. Like some people say, oh, there's all these different kinds of atheists. It's like, well, at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know. It's an attitude. It's not even necessarily a well-formulated intellectual position. It's more of just an attitude. But I started watching Styx a year and a half, 2 years, around the time of Trump's election, because he got it right. And this guy does a lot of political commentary, and he does it like every day. He puts out 3 or 4 videos in a. Then I started to realize that he's just reading a bunch of newspaper articles and basically summarizing them and then giving a bunch of analysis, and rambling's okay. But it's like, you read the title of his video, you already got half of what you need in terms of the good points. So, but that's fine. Everyone has to make a buck somehow. So he does political analysis. But what I don't like is that he parrots all this stuff about how the economy is doing well. It's just like jobs are up. Stock market's up. It's just like he's parroting all this stuff, and it's like I actually listen to people like Peter Schiff, Mike Maloney, Money GPS. I listen to, even beyond financial people, there's lots of people that can tell that the economy is not healthy. Nothing has changed here. So, but anyways, Styx used to be like into Satanism, I guess, but he talks about the occult a lot. I don't really watch his occult videos. He does like book reviews. He does like he reads like grimoires, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think maybe I watched half of one of his occult videos.
Yeah,
and he's talking about a grimoire, and he doesn't believe in spirits. He doesn't believe spirits exist.
Right. Yeah.
And the whole purpose of a grimoire is to summon spirits.
Exactly.
That's probably why I clicked off and haven't watched his videos since.
Yeah.
Because I fundamentally, to an extreme degree, disagree that a grimoire can legitimately summon an external energy being into your existence, and it's like calling it up on a telephone. A grimoire is like a phone book for spirits.
Oh yeah.
Some of them work, some of them don't. But I think if you have enough dedication, even a fake grimoire like the Necronomicon, and this is just a book talking about the Necronomicon, even if I made a grimoire right now on the spot, make up fake sigils and fake demon names, it would still show up. Because what I've noticed using stuff like this is if you set up ghost detecting equipment, you attract wandering ghosts. And they wander, and they're almost like a stray dog. They will follow you like a stray dog and follow you for a while. And maybe they're sucking your energy. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know any spiritual, technical thing of why they would want to follow us other than to take advantage of us somehow. But they will appear. And if you make up a fake demon name, like let's say Joey, let's say you call it Demon Joey, all right? And you draw this Joey sigil. Joey's going to show up.
Right.
And it's going to be a demon taking anything. They will grasp at straws for any legal reason to show up. Sometimes it'll be subtle. Sometimes it'll be over the top with creaks in the corner of your room and footsteps in your room. And I highly do not recommend it.
No, I don't recommend it. But some people were saying, like, when I was saying don't communicate with spirits, they were saying, well, there's good spirits. Well, like, I mean, it seems to me like most of these things are demons, or most of them are, or are there good spirits, or is it best to assume that they don't?
Well, I always take the cautionary perspective of it's invisible.
Right, right.
You can't see it. You can't know what it is.
Right.
If it acts almost predatorial, it's a negative thing. But judging, are you a good spirit? If you can ask this spirit for a month straight, are you good? It's going to take advantage of you and maybe deceive you if you're weak-minded. But a lot of people will say, oh, that's my friend.
Right.
It's not something humans are even supposed to become friends with. These are separate beings that I think their job is to watch us. Maybe record what we're doing, maybe preside over a territory of land for some spiritual reason or another. But
yeah, that's a fascinating idea about the land and the legal system, and like the parallels between demons and lawyers, basically. That's really interesting. Do you think there's like a demon court system, or like a demon registry with like Earth, like Chapter 5, like North America?
Maybe. You know, having firsthand perspective with demons, contact, they definitely show up, and they will. Let's say I have a big occult collection. They might say, oh, you got a bunch of occult books.
Yeah.
So we're going to show up. We have legal reason. Right. But I don't practice out of any of them. I read it, and then I close it, and then I watch a movie. I don't practice the stuff.
Exactly. You don't practice.
They really don't have a legal reason to be here. Yeah. They have to leave. Yeah. But I have seen, just reading the news, there are certain, I'm not going to name the religious groups because I don't like politics, and I don't like talking about religion because I'm not on either side.
Yeah.
I see one religion like lawyers. Yeah. This religion will memorize the scripture of this other religion just so they can say, hey, you're not doing your religion right.
Right.
And it's strange, but I have seen religions do this where they memorize the scripture of a different religion just so they can give them a hard time.
That's crazy. Yeah.
That's exactly what demons do. Yeah. Demon will stalk you, try to find some legal reason to bother you. Yeah, and if they don't have any legal reason, they have to leave. And you should know what that legal reason is. If you look just a little bit, you're going to figure it out why they think they're supposed to be there.
Right, yeah.
I'm going to fully write my full story in my book, but I need to get my book working. And it's called Rooms. I don't know when it's going to be released, but I'm going to try to release it next year, 2019. It's far too late. I should have released it years ago.
No worries. You have to get by, of course, so these things take time. But yeah, mentioning Styx in his videos, in a lot of his videos, every now and then, and I don't watch him very often anymore because for reasons I already explained, but stuff does appear in the background of his videos. Like, I think you may remember I did one video way back where I was like, paranormal streaks of light. They sometimes,
yeah, I saw that video. Was it like an orb or something?
Yeah, it's like, well, there was, yeah, it was like an orb or a streak of light, and there was no way it could, like, it didn't look like it could be a reflection or anything, but you can never really tell. But it just seems to very often these days that I see this sort of stuff behind people because I watch YouTube, and there's just weird stuff that appears behind a lot of people, behind their head when they're talking. It's like the act of talking, like, attracts whoever wants to listen. I don't know, but I mean, but the thing about Styx is he actually he's aware of some of these things that visit him. He's talked about it, and surely he's interested in the occult, so he has all those books, and so that's just going to be another factor that's going to contribute.
Does he rationalize it as something part of his mind, or what?
I don't know if he's actually. See, this is the thing. I don't know if Styx actually discounts that there are spirits, but I would agree with you that he's an atheist in that he seems to have a distaste for the idea of God. And that's something that I think really defines atheists, is like, it's not so, it's like, I actually believe that demonic worship and atheism kind of feed into each other. Now, of course, a lot of people would disagree with that, but in a way, it's like you have to worship something. So if you're not worshiping God, I don't necessarily mean worshiping, but if you're not of God and loving God, then where else are you gonna? You know, it's like we are spiritual people. We all have souls, like you said. There's no spirituality without spirit. So they want us to live in this world where everything is rational and mechanical. I wouldn't want to live in that world.
Yeah. I mean, I do believe in a supreme being.
Yeah.
And I think anyone who thinks they are the supreme being, they need a reality check.
Yeah.
They're not even close.
That's yeah. Some people might think I'm a Christian because I talk about a lot of Christian ideas. And it's true that I'm more open-minded to Christianity, but I've always looked at different traditions, different sources of writing. It just happens that the Bible is more accessible because the Buddha didn't really write anything. Maybe he made writings, but if you go to a bookstore and try to look for like the Buddhist Bible, there is none. There's just
Buddha never wrote anything down.
Never wrote anything down.
And Jesus never wrote anything down.
Yeah.
And it's a common amongst religious leaders. So the people that followed him wrote things down.
Yeah,
I do believe Siddhartha Buddha is a true story.
Oh, for sure.
And I think perhaps they might exaggerate something, and maybe they're going to hold some stuff back, and maybe they're going to interpret something. Yeah. So I don't take everything super literally, but I do believe he existed, and he did meditate, and I do believe he left his body and saw the higher dimensions.
Right. Yeah.
And was a spiritual person and tried to bring peace the best he could.
Yeah, yeah.
He made an impact, bigger impact than I'm ever going to make. So I think you have to respect the Buddha for existing. There are people that claim he never existed. And it's the same thing with Jesus. People claiming Jesus never existed. You can tell if someone that great existed or not based on the footprint they left. And that footprint reverberates. It's massive. They clearly existed and they altered the entire planet.
Yeah, I mean, clearly there was someone that those stories are based on. It's not so important to me whether he actually died in 33 AD or 50 BC. I mean, okay, that's, you know, or even if there were two people that the story is based on, I don't think it's, you know, so important to me. Or well, obviously that would be heretical. I'm a heretic. But anyways, you know, I don't know. I mean, when I think about God, I think of well, God is everything. God is the universe. Because how could God is not jealous, because how could God be jealous? He doesn't have to worry about anything. But maybe it's I don't know. Then you get into this complicated stuff where the Gnostics are saying that the Earth is satanic, and the whole visible universe is a creation of Satan as a rebellion against God. And it's like, you know, I still think the Earth is of God. All this stuff but maybe Satan is ruling there. Maybe in Buddhism, Mara is about illusion. He's about deception. You know, you find that in Christianity too. But basically,
yeah, I would agree the devil is a lowercase g.
Yeah, sure.
But what would that be? A lowercase g is just a spirit with some followers.
Yeah.
So I guess if that's what constitutes a lowercase god, then perhaps there's multiple lowercase, whatever the case. But I have been harassed legitimately.
Yeah.
People call me a liar on a regular basis. It makes me look bad, and I really haven't benefited from it. I guarantee you, in a workplace environment, someone Googles me and finds out I talk about demons.
Oh my goodness.
It's not going to help me financially. It will. It would hurt me to an extreme degree.
Yeah, that would hurt. Yeah, yeah, no.
I only mention it because it happened. And I think it's important because not too many people take it literally these days.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, no, I made a decision when I did my YouTube channel. Like, I'm going to speak pretty freely and openly here. And, well, if it comes back to bite me, there's nothing I can do now. So the die is cast. I mean, you know, having said that, I don't want to, you know, ever name, I would never want to devote like my channel to something negative, like you're saying, like memorizing another religion just so I can attack it, or just like that would be kind of negative. But
yeah,
every now and then gonna say things that if I worked in an office, this would not be a good idea. If I worked in retail or anything in the public service, this would not be a good idea. If I worked in a government office, not a good idea. But what can I say? I've been pretty blessed in life. Been pretty lucky that I have these projects going on in Ghana, and I pretty much live a very frugal lifestyle here in Toronto. Like, I don't go on vacations. I don't, you know, I just have my apartment here. I just stay along, and things will develop in overseas, and then hopefully, with that, if that, you know, produces a good income in the future, then I can keep doing what I'm doing, and not worry about talking about the taboo subjects.
Yeah.
Get you blacklisted or who knows what.
Occasionally, someone says, "Wow, you're lucky you can just talk on YouTube and get paid for it."
Not everyone's so lucky, yeah. Yeah.
But I don't get paid for it. It's basically a hobby. It's basically a hobby.
Oh yeah, no, you don't get paid for it. I mean, no, I mean, it's clearly you're putting your heart and soul into it. I mean, I do too. I don't ask for anything. It's fun. I do it for fun, but I like to share information, read different sources, try to synthesize that information. I wouldn't say there's anything too original. I mean, I basically put stuff together that I encounter, but I like to tell my own personal stories. So that's where I can, you know, give my own original take. It's just from like I was lucky to live in India, so I was interested in spirituality. That's one of the reasons I chose India to go. That was the first place I ever went to, as a, you know, like I'd been to Europe on a school trip when I was 17, but that's still the developed Western world. That may be changing today, but you know, the first place I went to was India, because you know, growing up, you hear about India being the spiritual place, and I didn't really get into ashrams. You know, people do the ashrams there, but I visited some temples in New Delhi. I was based in New Delhi. I visited. Well, I was volunteering in a slum during the days trying to teach. That didn't go very well. You know, most volunteers aren't prepared. They do it because they want the experience. That's just the honest. It's tourism, but But you know, you have lots of time to explore. And so I went to a Sikh temple, a Hindu temple. What's the other one? A mosque. A mosque. They didn't really have Buddhism. It's not so much in India. They have Hinduism. Well, they have some Buddhism there. And
yeah, the Buddha.
Yeah,
the Buddha's from India.
Yeah,
so you think they'd have something?
India. He's from India, but then Buddhism. It's weird because Buddhism originated in India, but then it spread through, you know, to Tibet and China and Japan, Korea, and then it seems to have settled down more in those places than it did in India. But it's weird because in Hinduism, I think Buddha is acknowledged. Like there was a statue of Buddha in the Hindu temple where we went. And I don't know, like the most positive vibe I got was from the Sikhs. They were the most, I can only say from visiting their temple, but they are the most open. Like the coldest feeling was, I don't mean to, you know, piss off anyone from different religions, but the mosque felt the most rigid and a little tense. The Hindu temple was a little less of that, but you still got the sense of haughtiness, the sense of like I don't know. It's just a self-importance. I don't know. I shouldn't be saying too much that I don't know about. But getting to the Sikh temple is a totally different vibe. They had a huge pool of water there, an enormous, like this thing was like acres of water with fountains around it, and a huge golden dome. And they give you like this sweet, like this dessert. They give it to you, like everyone who enters the place. It's like white marble. The whole thing is like polished white marble. It had a really positive feeling. And but the spiritual thing about India is not doing ashrams. It's not doing yoga and meditation. It's living in India and experiencing how it is there, all the senses and the dark side of humanity, because there's so much poverty in India. Like you'll see people starving and shitting in the street. You'll see like emaciated animals. You'll see like a cow skeleton with like flesh hanging. If you go driving in the countryside, and just like we were driving once on the highway, and there was a bus driving in front of us, and some guy like fell out of the bus onto the highway. He was like rolling out. Like we nearly hit him. We were in a rickshaw. A rickshaw is like a motorized taxi. But anyways, I'm going off on about India, but spirituality was one of the reasons that I wanted to go there. And when I came home, I hadn't learned anything, but I just was like, whoa, my mind was blown. But what can I say? So
yeah, I wonder if I could.
Lucky.
I wonder if I could sense spirits if I went there. You know, it seems like I know they believe in a lot of different gods.
I photographed what I believe to be spirits in some temple in India. I don't remember. It was in Jaipur, I believe. It was weird. It was like a dark figure with like would have been like 12 feet tall or something like that. It was from a distance, but I took two different photos from different angles, and the thing was basically within the space of the temple was built into the side of a mountain, a rocky mountain, and there was a pool of water going into the temple, but no humans could go in there. It was kind of like a cave, and that's where this thing was appearing. This tall, shadowy figure, 10 feet tall, and then with like almost like a cartoon-like smiley face of like a disc, a perfect circle lit up with like it almost looked like just like weird, like it doesn't even, it's not congruent with the rest of its shadowy body, but there was the same image in two photos from slightly different angles.
Wow.
Yeah, so I photographed a ghost in Helsinki, Finland, and I may have told this story before, but when I was in I went to visit this fort called Suomenlinna or something. It's like this huge sea fort from several centuries ago. And originally it had been the Swedes, then it was the Russians controlling the place for a long time. The Russians controlled it, and then eventually the Finns. So it has a long history going back several hundred years. Basically, a huge fortification on a series of islands built into solid granite. So there's no soil. It's just like solid granite. And I was in the officers' barracks in one of the islands there. And I was just walking around in this like 18th century type of, living history sort of museum. and there's this sign and a stairwell going down into the depths of the rock. And it said, the sign said, to the servants' quarters. And there was kind of a gate, but the gate was like waist high, it was unlocked. And there were no lights on down there, but something was drawing me down. Something was drawing me down to go down this stairwell. And I just started walking down, and it was like maybe 30 sets of stairs into the darkness. And I was feeling very uncomfortable. But I kept going because something was drawing me down there, partly curiosity. And I was using my camera to just use the flash to see what was in front of me. And then I could see there's a small room there with a glass panel or a plastic transparent panel. And then, you know, nothing in the room itself was just like some chairs and tables. But you couldn't go in there. It was like a closed off exhibit, completely dark. And I'm feeling like electricity, like very uncomfortable. Like there is something here that does not like that I am here. I am in the presence of something. I got to get the hell out of there. So I took 2 photos and then directly into the room, and then I got out of there. That night in the hotel, I was reviewing the photos. And sure enough, in both of the photos, there was a strange apparition in the room, the apparition of a man staring straight at me. In this image, you could make out the eyes. The eyes were very well formed. There were pupils in the eyes. They were the proportion, you could see the bridge of the nose. You couldn't quite see his mouth, but his forehead was very well defined. He had pointy ears. And like I said, you couldn't quite see his mouth. Rest of the body's less visible. I had, you know, chills going down my spine because of the way the eyes were looking right at me. It was exactly what I felt. It was exactly what I felt.
You should post that picture, make a video.
The thing is, I printed that photo like big. I printed it. I took it around. I showed it to people. I copied the photo on my computer, and then it all went missing. The photo disappeared. I brought the photo to a party, and then I forgot it there. I never got it back. Somehow the file erased itself from my computer. Wow. I honestly don't know how that happened, but you know, I wasn't the best at organizing my photos back in the day. So maybe I don't know. I would not have deliberately deleted that. It was really weird. It totally disappeared. So unfortunately, I can only say that it happened, but
yeah, that's all right.
But anyways, so yeah, those are some of the things.
Yeah, that happens. I mean, I filmed something, ghost investigation, and I lost the entire video.
Oh, right.
So it does happen. It does happen. Oh, yeah, the parking lot of the mall. I went there at night for a movie. I decided to ghost investigate, and I got like a 20.0 spike, and the static electricity antenna was set off. So I'm going to go back to that same spot because the footage got deleted on accident.
Oh, yeah, that's always a bummer. But yeah, no, it's sometimes what can you do? You just got to keep trying. But yeah, no, I know I've been telling you I was planning on giving you more footage. Forgive me for not sending that along. I made the, you know, sometimes I make grand plans, and then wasn't able, because I wanted to go out to the island in Toronto. There's some creepy places there, but it's kind of a journey, and I haven't found the time. But you think what I think I'd like to do is I'd like to send you some footage that I have anyways.
Okay, sure. Yeah, and I'm going to mail you that T-shirt.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to mail you that ghost investigation T-shirt.
Yeah, anytime you can send it along. I'll be sporting it. And but yeah, I know I made some footage back in May or June where I explore under this bridge. There was some creepy mural there, but actually there's a very strange light that appears in this video. I'm calling out hello, 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 and then as soon as I'm calling out hello, this strange light shoots down from the ceiling, and I caught it on the camera. So I have not posted that. So you can take it and do what you want with it. You can
cool.
Put it in one of your. I've just been saving it because I was planning to send it along to you with other stuff, but you know now the winter's here, so what can I say? But
okay, yeah, sure.
But if I like, I would edit a little bit of it because I'm walking and editing, but I don't know if I edit something as a video footage and then render it as a video, can I then send that to you? Wouldn't that lose quality if you were to then put that in another video? Would it lose? Like, I don't know how the formatting would work.
You know, just put it in a Google whatever drive, Google Drive.
Okay.
And it's not going to lose quality. Not really.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try,
Microscopically, maybe.
Just cut it up a bit, and then I'll send it along. You can do with it as you want, but
so someone asks, do ghosts hack? I mean, ghosts are spirit energy. They're almost electricity. And when the spirit set this off, it almost acted like it could see the internal circuitry. And I do know on Ghost Adventures, or maybe it was the show Deadly Possessions, Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum, some guy took a picture on the outside of Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum. He took a picture.
Oh, yeah.
And then he checked his phone and he kept getting a bunch of messages from Facebook, people thumbs upping the video. He said he never put it on Facebook. He just took a picture with his phone and then drove down the road. And he said it was posted to his Facebook with a message that he didn't write.
Well, that's fucked. That's
Zach Bagans. Zach Bagans says that could have been a ghost. Who knows?
Oh my goodness.
So the guy won entry to a special event where they investigated the museum. Wow. And I can't remember what the message was, but it was pretty freaky.
Yeah.
It was like,
oh my goodness.
It was very short. It was like, see you, or something weird.
Oh my goodness. If ghosts can hack, then that's bad for us, because then they can make us look really bad. It can be like they can hack your Twitter account and make you say something really bad that you didn't want to say.
I mean, I think it's theoretically possible, but they clearly don't do it that often. Otherwise, we'd have a total meltdown of everything.
Yeah, there must be. Yeah, no, it's an interesting question, but yeah. Well, John, unfortunately, I gotta go get some food pretty soon.
Yeah, I gotta get going too. This has gone for way longer than, but that's fine. It's totally fine.
I've been. It's 6:30 almost where I am. So
okay, so go get some dinner. Yeah. And I'm going to go get some lunch.
Yeah.
And be seeing you.
Thanks for the invite, John. Till later.
Bye.
Peace.